scrape that stupid smile across your face. It's comedy time, and the gang's all here, the girls, the boys and the dog.
Andy's in St Albans. Andy, what do you reckon?
Well, first of all, I'm not a Boris lover, but
Right.
he got given the job to get us out of Europe, the EU,
Yeah.
and he done a good job. He done a good number on it, right?
What's your favourite
we
bit?
should have left.
What's your favourite bit?
Well, the fact that we left.
No, about the thing that's better now we've gone.
Well, it's very difficult to put anything. It's no worse.
Well, it is, isn't it?
It's not. It's not.
We're 100.
What's caused the worseness, if that's a word,
Yeah.
is not that we've left the EU. It's the fact that there was a pandemic followed straight after by a war.
Yeah,
you can't blame what's going on.
It's not, though, is it? Because
Yes, it is. This is the point you're missing.
Okay. Well, I mean, where are you getting your information from? Because I'm getting mine from the IMF, the Bank of England.
The IMF.
Yeah,
right?
and the Bank of England.
They're the people that said we're going to have...
But where are you getting your information from?
They're the people that said that we were going to have go into recession and we're the only one that's not going to make any money.
We've got...
Just before the pandemic,
Yeah.
in between the small gap between leaving and the pandemic, this country was making more money.
Okay, mate.
Right?
Yeah, okay. Where are you getting your information from about the 4% hit to GDP having nothing to do with Brexit? You heard the Governor of the Bank of England yesterday.
And LBC, to be honest.
Pardon?
LBC. I listen to you and I listen to what they say.
Right. Well, you haven't heard me say that.
What they're saying is, right, that the 4%, right, drop is based on Liz Trust.
No, they're not saying that.
That's what it's from. That's the period that they're taking their analysts from.
It's over the last 3 years.
Well,
she was only Prime Minister for 10 minutes last year, mate.
So out of them last 3 years, what have we had?
So it's 100. Is it 100 million or 100 billion a year? It must be 100 billion.
Tell me what we've actually had. We've had pandemic.
Yeah,
we've had war.
Yes, I know, mate. But there's literally nobody who thinks Brexit's had nothing to do with our decline, because all the other countries have had pandemic and war.
Brexit, only Remainers.
No, Andy. Just have a little think about this. We're doing worse than all the other countries that had the pandemic and the war as well.
What, before or after?
Before or after what, Andy?
Well, I don't know. You're asking the question.
Yeah, okay, let me try again. The things you're blaming for our problems happen to all the other countries that we're being compared to, and we're still bottom.
Right. So the immediate problem that we had, and I didn't agree with Miss Truss being leader of the party.
Don't make me remind you that we're looking at 3 years of economic damage. That's not because of Liz Truss.
Over 2 of them years, right, we was everyone in the world was struggling, right? But just prior to that, we was one of the best at
but why do you keep saying that again? Where are you getting that information from? You think that in 2018 we were going great guns economically?
Yeah.
Okay, where are you getting that information from?
The same place that you get yours.
Well,
the media.
No, but
and
you're not.
Everywhere else.
You're not though, because that's not an opinion, is it? That's counting, and no one has provided figures to back up that. Let's pretend you're right, okay? Let's pretend that the British economy was the best, doing brilliantly between 2016 and 2018. We hadn't left the European Union then, of course. But today...
No, just after we left the EU.
Yeah. But we didn't leave.
Officially left
But we didn't
EU.
leave, did we? That was 3 years ago.
And look at the corruption... right,
yeah,
that was coming out of the EU when we was trying to leave. Lie after lie after lie. Refusal to give us all the facts about what was going on.
And what's your best example of that, Andy?
Well, the fact that when we signed up for the common market,
hang on a minute, carry on.
For us to join, right?
Yeah.
We agreed, wrongly in my opinion, to pay 16% on top of anything that we buy.
Yeah.
Right.
So what was the lie
that they
were? What were the lies they were telling us in 2016, 2017?
They wasn't coming across with when we asked for.
But you just said all the corruption.
They refused to give it.
Yeah, you just said all the. Listen, Andy, I'm going to keep you on until. Yeah, you just said all the corruption. You just said all the corruption and lies, and I just want an answer to an example of what you're talking about.
Well, they lied about what was happening.
Go on.
Well, everything that the EU was doing.
Yeah, go on. What?
I mean, they lied about the vaccine that we gave them.
But that was long after Brexit, Andy. You just said.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
they lied.
If you say,
to lie.
I don't know what you're talking about, and I mean that politely. But if you say, and then there was all the corruption and lies that came out just before we left, you have to.
You're not telling me that the EU, the unelected dictatorship of the EU, didn't lie.
All right, but I can say that they didn't. If you can't give me an example of them doing it, so go on, have another go.
Off the top of my head, right, because I've just done a long drive.
Okay.
And I didn't expect to be on here.
Did we ring you? Did we take you by surprise? We've got to start. Hang on a minute. You've got to stop ringing people unexpectedly. All right. Poor fella's just had a long drive. Yeah. What's he going to do if LBC are on the phone and they put him live on the radio and he's got to actually explain? Sorry, mate. I had no idea that we took you by surprise this morning. But crack on.
That's all right. Yeah. I mean. You take the vaccine.
No. You just said off the top of my head examples of the corruption and lies they were telling us in 2015.
Well, they didn't come across with the answers.
Corruption and lies, please.
So much they didn't lie.
Well, you just said they did.
Hang on. All right, I'm getting a little bit... Right. It wasn't so much that they lied. Right.
No, it was the corruption.
That they didn't give us the information that we requested about... figures about this, that and the other.
What information is that then?
Any information that we asked for, they refused to give us.
When did they do that then?
When we was campaigning to leave.
What information do you think that you're talking about?
All the finances and what they're taking and that.
Who on earth told you that we didn't have... Who told you that we didn't have access? We were in it. We were part of it. When you say they, you mean we. Who told you that we couldn't access the information that you don't know the name of?
And that they refused to
Who told you this? Who told you this?
It was on the news.
What documents? Off the top of your head.
Certain documents.
Yeah, what documents?
I can't remember which documents they were.
Do you have a single scintilla? Do you have a single scintilla of fact to support anything that you're saying? Can you think of one example of lies, of corruption, of documents? Yeah. Go on.
Right, it might not have been them, but since then...
No, before.
This is what we were dealing with.
Yeah,
people
go on.
That
Before, Andy.
About the vaccine.
What was the lie about the vaccine, Andy?
They said that it killed people.
Who said that? The European? Are you talking about the European Union now?
Later on, they just wanted to discredit us.
Okay, let's go back to the central question. Why do you think Boris Johnson thinks being in the European Union is a great idea?
Because that's what he was asked to do, told to do. I told you I'm not a lover of Boris.
No, but why is he telling Ukraine to join? He told you to leave, but he's telling Ukraine to join. Why is that then?
I didn't rely on what he said. It's what I see.
Yeah, I know.
And I see that this country is far better. The trouble with this country is we've got too many people that are making decisions that do not really want us to leave. There's so many. You can take the Chancellor at the moment. He's a Remainer.
Yeah. What decisions do you think he should have taken?
I didn't say he'd made any wrong ones at the moment.
You did. You said the problem with this country is we've got too many people taking decisions who didn't want us to leave. I mean, I've just reminded you what you literally said 47 seconds ago. So what decisions has he taken that are evidence of the fact that he doesn't really want to leave?
Well, he hasn't done anything, has he?
What should he have done?
Well, I'm not in charge of the Treasury.
Well, why
so
do you keep saying things about people on subjects that you have absolutely... Let me be polite. You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
I do.
Go on, then.
I know what I want.
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?
I want to continue to not be in the EU.
Why?
Why? Because I think they're a corrupt organisation.
Give me some evidence of that.
I'll give you evidence.
Go on.
The evidence is what you see.
Yeah, go on. What can you see?
Where's our car industry?
What?
Where's our car industry?
Well, it's just hit the lowest level since before the Mini was produced.
Why?
Because there's supply chain issues, but a large part of it is the fact that we're not in the single market anymore. So our biggest market...
No, because we never sold cars in the single market.
Right. I mean, this is a little bit like...
Very few cars. The only people that prospered, right, about vehicle manufacturing in the EU, and why we was in the EU, was Germany and France.
So why is it worse now than it was when we were in it?
Well, because we haven't had a chance to rebuild it. We've had a pandemic and a war on.
And how are we going to... So have Germany.
Eh?
So have Germany.
Yeah, and Germany failed to support Ukraine.
So why is their car industry doing so much better than ours then?
Why? It's because over the 40 years that we've been in there, they've been systematically bringing our
Go on.
industry down to nothing.
How did they do that?
By selling off the assets that we've got in this country, like car. Why don't we...
So how did Germany sell off things that were owned by Britain?
Well, they brought the Mini.
Well, then that is then owned by the Germans, isn't it? Yeah. I don't think this is going very well, and I don't think you and I are ever going to meet. Can you just...
Well, we can't, because you're such a staunch Remainer that you will not accept...
Well, what do you think I should accept? What is the thing you've said to me that you think I should dwell on after we say goodbye?
Well, there is nothing I can say that you will.
I promise you there is. I've asked you several times for some evidence, some examples.
Well, I've told you evidence. Where's our car industry?
But that... Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Where's our Ford Transits built now?
Yeah.
Where are they built? Do you know?
Have a great day, mate.
Yeah, you see, you get a difficult question and you don't answer.
Oh, sorry, what do you want me to tell you? Where are our Ford Transits built?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Where are our Ford Transits built?
Turkey.
Yeah. Well, there is a facility in Turkey that builds Ford Transits. That's not in the European...
There isn't one in this country no more. You can't build a Ford engine in this
Turkey's
country
not in the...
They've all sold them off.
Turkey's not in the European Union.
No, but it was funded by the EU.
So what's your point here then? We're leaving the European Union and somehow the transits will come back to Britain, will they?
Well, I doubt it. It's probably too late now.
So why are you talking about transits?
Because this is what I'm talking about is the systematic destruction of this country by the EU.
Okay. And what's the first signs of things getting better?
Well, I've never been so well off.
Okay.
And I'm just a humble coach driver.
Okay. You're not affected by the cost of living crisis? 16.5% inflation on food?
I'm affected by it, but I can live through it.
Energy costs looking good?
Yeah, but I can remember when my mortgage was in double figures.
Interest rates at historic highs yesterday?
And I can remember that as well.
All right, mate. Have a great weekend.
When I bought my first house...
Yeah.
You know, it goes through things like that, but they're brought on by things not in the control of this country.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, are they? It's the war that's causing it.
But every country's been affected by the war. Every single country. So we come out bottom...
Every single country is.
I've done my best,
right, but we're doing more for most of them than some of them.
With what?
Well, the Germans didn't want to get involved, did they? because they're scared of Russia.
Right.
Hungary vetoed the oil so that they can still get theirs.
Why do you? Why? What do you think? Just
don't care about anyone else except themselves.
So why would we want to leave that then?
Because what's the point in being in there? There's someone that
just told me they really look after themselves. Why would we want to leave that?
The EU is run by a non-elected group of people.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Andy.
You can believe what you want.
No, it doesn't work like that, though, does it? Because I can't believe what I can't. For example,
only rubber stamps what the executive want.
Yeah. We're not going to get there, are we?
Tell me what the EU's done for us.
Good Lord. Honestly?
Yeah.
Okay. What the EU has done for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Freedom of movement.
We had frictionless trade with the largest market on the planet. We could sell into Germany as easily as we could sell into Birmingham.
Into Germany almost as easily.
We could buy from. Well, that's just not true, though. I can't. I mean, listen. You can say things that aren't true, and I can politely acknowledge them. But if you ask me a question, and I give you an answer to it, you can't then say rhubarb or the Earth is flat.
Right. So what you're saying is we had a trade agreement.
Yeah. Yes, Andy.
Right. So why wouldn't the EU give us a trade agreement now? Because we left.
They did. We've got a withdrawal agreement, but we don't have a free trade agreement in the way that we did before. We don't have the indivisible four freedoms.
Before.
Pardon?
Nothing's the same as what it was before.
No, it's worse.
What?
You've just acknowledged that it's worse. You've just said, why didn't they give us what we had before? You don't realise it, but you've just acknowledged that what we had before was better than what we have now, and you rang in to claim that what we have now is better than what we had before. Tell me you can see that, at least.
Well, yes, in a way.
So why didn't they give us what we had before? You tell me.
Well, why didn't they?
Because we're not in the EU.
But other countries are not in the EU, and they've got free trade agreements.
They have freedom of movement. If you're thinking about Switzerland or Norway, they've signed up to the rules that the European Union...
Why would we want freedom of movement?
In order to have the free trade that you just mourned the passing of.
That's why we haven't got it.
I'm going to have to not...
They insist that we have to have people coming into this country that we can't control.
Yeah. How's that going now? How's the immigration control working out for you at the minute?
Because there's been too many Remainers putting their oar in and stopping it. Too many do-gooders turning around and saying we can't do this, we can't do that.
Like who? In a government populated by Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, Dominic Raab, who are the people that have stopped you from getting the immigration policy you wanted?
Well, the civil servants, I don't know. But every time we say we're going to do something, oh no, you can't do that. You can't.
Who says that? Who says that? I have to take a break. I'm 9 minutes.
People that want to remain.
I'm 9 minutes late for the break. I will think about transits, and you think about why we can't have the deal that we had before. All right, deal?
Deal.
Love to the family. Beth's in Greenwich. Beth, what would you like to say?
Hiya. I think what you said was sensationalist and over the top, but I do think there are some elements of truth in that, and I say this as somebody who works with children. With the lockdowns and all the mask wearing, we're seeing a lot of children with speech and language difficulties, with dampened facial effects. It does have an impact on society. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try and...
We're talking very specifically about people going to work or going out in public when they're ill. So I understand the point that you're making, but that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, but wearing a mask when you're out...
And
you can quite easily... When you're ill, we used to have the thing of handkerchiefs, which I don't quite like. I like the idea of tissues. You could sneeze into a tissue. I don't want anyone sneezing in anyone's face. I wouldn't sneeze in anyone's face or cough in it. It's very rude.
Why aren't tissues dystopian? Why aren't tissues dystopian, do you think, for Desmond Swayne?
I don't know about Desmond Swayne. I can tell you for me.
Yeah.
It's because we sneeze into the tissue, we dispose of what we need to, and we carry on. we don't, I'm going to say, hide behind masks. We're not.
Why would you say that?
We're not putting ourselves behind the mask 24/7. We're doing what we need to as and when, rather than having a blanket all the time. Catch-all.
What's the problem? So we've both got the same condition. We've both got something that's probably infectious. We're spluttering and coughing and sneezing all over the shop. Why do we feel so differently about the idea of wearing a mask? I know why I feel like I feel. I would file it very loosely and simplistically under, better safe than sorry, it's no biggie. Whereas you feel strongly enough about it to ring me to say, no. It is a biggie. And I'd just love to understand a little bit better where that comes from. For you personally.
Well, I think it was more hearing your listeners than you specifically.
No, but we're talking about you now, not me. So why do you think it is? You know, here you are, obviously infectious. A mask is obviously going to be more effective than tissues or handkerchiefs or anything else. Not least because sometimes we sneeze unexpectedly. We get taken by surprise by sneezes, and you know that if you ever watch it in sort of violet light, infrared light, the globules go everywhere. So what is it that repels you?
So my first question is, what type of mask? Is it the type of mask that would actually catch what I'm sneezing out?
That's not an answer to my... Well, yes, it is. It's the most effective, wonderful mask in the world. So what is the problem?
So the most effective, wonderful mask in the world are not the ones we're using.
No, but you are now. I'm asking you why you're not.
But these aren't the masks that we're talking about. When we're talking about
we are. Those are the masks I'm talking about. Because whatever mask it is, it's better than a tissue. So what is it inside? Stop asking me questions if you can, and you're perfectly entitled to ignore me.
The tissue are exactly the same, but one gets removed after you sneeze, one doesn't.
Okay.
But when you're breathing, the mask doesn't stop the air from coming out the sides.
So
the mask doesn't stop you from breathing around other people.
Okay. Why don't surgeons just use tissues then? Why don't surgeons just use tissues in operating theatres?
The surgeons don't go into operating theatres when they're sick.
But they're wearing the mask in case they're infectious. So they're being even more careful than you are when you know you're infectious. So that's the point. I'm talking now about your analysis of the usefulness of masks. So that's why I'm asking you why surgeons wear masks. But I do want to try.
Masks for droplets, not for viral particles.
Yes. So why don't they use a tissue?
What we're talking about are for fluid droplets.
So why don't they use a tissue?
Can get caught.
I don't think we're going to hit 11 o'clock without you even meeting me halfway. I'm interested in the psychology. Okay, all right.
You'd have to go for a complete re-scrub if you sneeze into your hand.
And the paediatrician that just texted me saying, please wear masks, he's wrong as well?
Can you ask the paediatrician what type of mask?
No, because I can't even get an answer out of you, and you're on the phone, so I'm unlikely to get an answer out of someone that texted me 20 minutes ago. What is it about the mask that upsets you or offends you?
It's not the issue of covering your face and protecting other people. That's not at all the issue.
It's about the fifth time I've asked you. Inside, if you had to articulate, here's a person saying, please wear this, and you say, no. Why?
As you were saying before, the cost-benefit analysis for the data and research that we have of the efficacy of masks in terms of stopping the spread of virulent particles is not sufficient.
Then that's not true.
To have them, I would disagree.
Okay.
If someone can come on and bring up the data to back up your side, I'll listen to it. But from what I've seen...
And that's when I come back to where this conversation started, which was me saying better safe than sorry, which seems an obvious and simple umbrella under which to file cautious, community-spirited behaviour. That's something you reject, and I think we both know that you're not going to answer this question, but why?
It's not that it's not better safe than sorry. It's like saying maybe a silly analogy. Why don't we wrap all of our children up in cotton wool and tell them they can't walk out anywhere? But
I've already addressed that. I've already answered that question.
And I may have missed that. Could you tell me?
Okay, but because that is an enormous imposition, so when we undertake our cost-benefit analysis, whether consciously or subconsciously, we decide that is going to cause us more harm than do possible good, which is the essence of the question I've now asked you 12 times. On what planet does wearing a mask strike you as doing more harm than not wearing a mask?
It's not harm. It's a lack of opportunity.
I've done my best, Beth. I have to go to the news now.
Putting cotton wool is reducing opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, I think. Andrew's in Barnsley to kick things off. Andrew, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James.
Hello, Andrew.
Yeah, I can really put you in the picture with this one, because I've seen a lot about it in the media myself and in newspapers recently. I've even heard you saying, how come that we've got no unemployment and we're short of jobs?
And huge amounts of
jobs
vacancies.
we can't fill.
Yes.
Yeah, if this is the thing, if migration is at record levels compared with 2016. The reason we're in this situation, and I was concerned about migration levels in 2016, and I'm not so much today.
Okay.
The reason is, James, a vast amount, probably the greater cohort of EU migration under the freedom of movement into the UK, it was temporary people, young people a lot of the time.
Yes.
And they came and worked in a lot of the factories, certainly right in my town, a massive cohort. Examples, your HGV drivers, it was a massive cohort, but they were never registered as being settled. They didn't really intend to settle.
Right.
A lot of the young kids maybe did 3-6 months, went back home, another big cohort came.
Yes.
So, and we saw that in towns like mine, in all the red wall. It affected jobs, paying conditions, services to a massive, massive degree, simply because the numbers you're talking about and comparing today don't show that. And it was a far bigger number of, in millions. If we actually ever did get to know how many, because people, they didn't get off the bus at Waterloo Station from Warsaw, and somebody with a clipboard said, "Oh, who are you? Are you staying? Are you coming?" And there was no traceability, other than which you can clearly see it's still in the jobs market.
Right, but the people
full employment today, and we're short. There's vacancies we can't fill, despite what you're headlining as record.
I think I understand what you're saying. The people that you were unhappy about were the people who were coming here to work, though. That's a bit at odds with quite a lot of the traffic at the time, isn't it? That it was usually people who
substituted people they took jobs from Brits, older Brits. I know my brother had 4 years unemployment in his mid-50s. He got a job as soon as the referendum results started to bite in to Christmas 16. A big local bakery in Barnsley, a massive concern. It were really all the big concerns. Naturally enough, they wanted young, fit, able workers.
Yes.
They wouldn't take somebody like my brother on, who lived a mile from the bakery in mid-50s. They'd have somebody from 2,000 miles away in his 20s. So my brother had to sit and freeze with no heating, with his hands turning blue, and be unemployed on benefits. You see, that was what freedom of movement meant, James.
To people like your brother, and the 1.2 million who came in 2022. Just to be clear, what do you think they're doing?
Well, it's not impacting on jobs that I'm describing to you. It's not HGV drivers are on better money now. UK-wide, not just in my town. So then, it's as I said to you at the beginning, James. You don't know, and I don't know the exact number that were coming over as freedom of movement that were never registered. You see, as settled migrants. There was just obviously no government statistics to provide that answer, but people felt it. It was real. It existed in towns like mine.
And so today's figures to you are meaningless.
Yeah, James. I mean, there's 60 million people on this island. So if
as far as we know, Andrew.
Extra, it'll be more. If there's 600,000 more in a year, it's probably a drop in the ocean, James. And it certainly is nothing to get rattled about. I mean, if it was the same scenario, James, if that big bakery in Barnsley was employing lots of these 600,000 and this people like my brother were sat freezing and hadn't got a job, then we'd be getting worked up again, James. But obviously the numbers that this 600,000 doesn't reflect a tsunami of immigration and migration in the way that
I find this fascinating. So I mean, essentially, and obviously your experience is personal, but I don't think it would be fair to call it anecdotal. And a lot of businesses have shut, of course, as a consequence of the difficulties of getting staff, and if wages are going up, then it means that in the middle of a cost of living crisis, everybody's costs are going to be going up more than they would have done otherwise. But on a very personal level, because your brother got a job, you are now more relaxed.
Well, not just my brother, James.
No, I'm sorry, that didn't sound fair. Yes, exactly, because there's 5.2 million. There's 5.2 million people who are registered unemployed at the moment.
Businesses do close, and different businesses have different reasons to close. It's not that you can blame Brexit for closing every business, but what you can say about Brexit,
a lot of the businesses that are closing
it's delivered full employment for the working people. So, maybe it's a negative for some business owners, but it's a bigger positive in the UK employment market. These 600,000 new migrants can have a job. We don't have to say they're going to be unemployed in Brexit UK.
1.2 million new people. Because, part of the problem...
Jobs,
I hear you, but how many do you think left last year?
Well, there's always coming and going.
No, I know, but how many do you think left? How many do you think left last year?
I don't know, James. Don't know.
Says, I like your analysis, and it's oddly positive in many ways. But the idea that we've sort of seen a decline or a removal of people leaving, and therefore creating opportunity. 557,000 people left the country last year.
Well, they always do, isn't they?
That's the highest. That's the highest ever.
There's immigrants,
that's the highest ever. But what I like about your analysis is that you're sort of saying the numbers are meaningless because whatever the figures say, I don't believe.
It's settled migration.
Okay.
I'm
but it's not settled migration. If 557,000 people left last year, that's all I'm pointing out.
Yeah, but
there's no but there, really.
I'm not disputing the figures in 2016 what they had.
And of course, unemployment's not zero. And to the massive number of vacancies in the country, what do we say to that?
Well, that's a positive for working people.
Yes.
That can only go two ways.
In the NHS? What about working people? What about Andrew? I've given you a fair old crack of the whip, mate. So I will have I'll have a couple of bites back now, if I may. What about working people who need NHS services and can't get them because of all the shortages?
Well, the system now is for visa migration.
No, but we've got that in place, and there's now
26.2K, haven't they, salary?
Okay, so are you going to answer any of the questions I asked, Andrew? Andrew, I've really carefully given you 10 minutes to say whatever you wanted, and I just would like to give myself a couple of minutes to come back at you. All right?
Right. Well, I'm saying that let the people come to the NHS, provided the pay. I've
got to go to the news now, but huge vacancies, good for working people, and I am delighted your brother got a job back. And the first call on immigration figures, perhaps predictably, hinges upon the notion that you can't trust the immigration figures. But here we are. Tim's in Southend. Tim, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thanks for taking my call.
You're very, very welcome.
It benefits me, unfortunately, and it pains me to say that because I was about to vote Labour, and I really think Labour have missed the boat on this one. I really think Labour should these should be Labour policies. And I know you've got a lot of people ringing up, and they're all banging the same drum, but I'm really lost now because the policies that were announced yesterday are what I think Starmer and the rest of Labour should have done six months, a year ago.
Oh, fair enough. What is the personal impact that you're talking about when you say it helps?
The personal impact for me is I'm not well off. I'm not what I would call middle class, and I'm not poor. I'm in between. Yeah. So I work a lot. I've got a mortgage, and my boiler does need to be changed within the next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
I've looked into heat pumps, and I've looked into the whole spectrum of the environment. I do believe in net zero, absolutely. The problem I've got is that now this makes my life a little bit more relaxed and a little bit easier, James, and I'm being absolutely honest with you.
That's fine. No, listen, if you're voting from a position of measurable financial advantage, then, no one's going to argue with you. So can you talk us through the numbers a bit? I'm not expecting Bamber Gascoigne.
Not really. Basically, when I've looked into the boiler, to go from a boiler to a heat pump is hugely expensive.
But you know how much the subsidy is?
Well, the subsidy I thought was about 5,000.
And that's just gone up. That went up to 7.5 yesterday.
Yeah, it's gone up to 7.5 years state, which again, you know, for a lot of people, but they might be sneering at that. That is a big bonus.
Who's sneering at that?
Well, yeah, but people are saying that all the policies...
No, but it's only... No, Tim, mate, it's only a bonus for you if you replace your gas boiler with a heat pump, which you've decided you're not going to do.
Absolutely true.
So it's not a bonus for you at all.
No,
so people might sneer at that.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that if, like, this isn't going to help the poor, right? I get that, okay? And this isn't going to help the middle class to well-off people. But the people in between, the people that start... Say, for instance, I have to keep a petrol car going for at least another 10, 15 years. Now, second-hand petrol cars now, the price of them has gone through absolutely gone through the roof.
Do you think it's going to come down now as a consequence?
I think... No, what I think will happen, I think it will spread out slightly longer. I know 5 years isn't a long time. I'm not by any means saying that it is. I just want to make a massive impact.
Well, you are saying it's going to make a massive impact, massive enough to change your voting, massive enough to change your voting intention.
The point I'm trying to make is that these should have been Labour policies.
No, I know, I understand that point, and I disagree with you, but not massively strongly. But that's why I'm really interested in the calculations that you've made, or the kind of detail that you've explored, because your fuel bills would come down, wouldn't they, if you had a heat pump, and $7.5 grand's worth of help putting it in. But
James, if you look into heat pumps seriously, go on.
I have looked into them. And the first advice we received,
they're a disaster.
No, I know they are. That was the advice we received, was that just wait a bit, wait and see, not make your decision now, which you've done.
Well, no, but the thing is, I haven't made my decision now. I've got a decision.
So you should make it in 5 or 6 years' time.
Yeah, if my boiler lasts that long. But the point is now, I'm not going to be legislated against in a few years' time that I have to change to a heat pump.
Well, you wouldn't be, because it was 2030 anyway, and 5 or 6 years' time is 2028 or 2029.
Yeah, but I'm hoping my boiler is going to last longer. The point I'm trying to make is...
Well, your whole calculation was based on telling me that it was going to conk out within the next 5 or 6 years, and possibly sooner.
Okay, so look, the longevity of my boiler is about 5 to 6 more years, which takes me to 2028, right?
Yeah.
So let's say it lasts another 2 years, and I get to 2030 by a month, and then I've now got to spend a heat pump, and there's no way I can get a heat pump.
No, fair enough. No, I get that.
Now that's changed for me.
We're narrowing the constituency down to people whose boilers are going to conk out within a 6-month window, so we can add them to the list of people who are celebrating.
Not really, James. Look. I mean, I know you can sort of make fun of it a little bit.
I'm not making fun. Come on, man. I'm not making fun of it at all. You said everyone else was banging on.
I'm narrowing it down to 6 months, but I'm not. Listen, if your boiler, say you just replaced your boiler, and your boiler is going to last 11 years, yeah. So let's say you get to 30, 32, and you can't afford a £15,000 heat pump and all the other stuff that goes with it.
With a $7.5 grand subsidy.
With a $7.5 grand subsidy at the moment, we don't know what the future's going to hold. What I'm saying is this has spread it out, so it's taken a little bit of pressure off.
And I respect that. I didn't mean to make you feel like you were being teased, but we can't finish the conversation without bringing the environment into it, can we?
I get that. Now listen, as far as the environment goes, there are a couple of factors that I think the average person on the street really gets.
Go on.
Okay, the first one is, and I know it's been said a lot, and people sneer at it. We are 1% of the world's polluters. Okay, we are 50% ahead now of all the other countries in Europe, like France.
So we should slow down.
No, what I'm saying is that we are getting there well ahead of everybody else. Now, just slowing down slightly is not going to affect the environment at all.
Could you think of? I mean, I hear you, but the idea that because we're doing well, we should do less well is probably not something you'd apply in many other areas of life or politics.
I know, but I think because we're doing well, we don't have to punish people in the bracket that I'm in.
That's what I respect. But what if 2 years from now the numbers have changed? What if 5 years from now the numbers have changed?
Well, then you have to respect... See, something else people have constantly said today. Now, I've always said I would like politicians to say, look, I got this wrong, I got that right, you know. I've always said that. And one of my big bugbears with Johnson and all that is they never admitted anything wrong. Now Sunak has come out with this yesterday, which was a complete shock to me. And when he came out with it, the first thing everybody said was about what they've done previously, I'm going by today, what's happening today. And I think you're going to find a lot of people will. I'm just so upset that Starmer and Labour, you talk to them, they haven't even got a policy on this.
Well, they have,
all they say is,
they've got really
they haven't.
strong policies on this. Ed Miliband's been working on it for 7 or 8 years.
And they've already come out and said they're going to stick with the original policies that before Sunak's come out of this thing already.
And yeah, of course they have.
Do you think that's going to play well for them, really?
Well, it is for the motor industry.
Yeah, but the motor industry isn't the average Joe on the street.
No, but they make the cars you're going to buy.
But you don't even drive a car, right?
I do drive a car.
Oh, okay. I was listening to you the other day, and you were telling me that you don't drive.
No, I do, just not very often, and I don't have a weird emotional relationship with my car.
Oh, that's right. That's what I was listening to at the time. Yeah, all I'm saying is.
But I mean, you don't need to drive a car. You don't need to drive a car to know that Ford are quite an important voice in the car world.
No, but you need to drive a car to appreciate what you pay all the time. You know, it's a lot of money going out.
And the cost of running a car with an electric option is lower than the cost of running a car without one, isn't it?
Not at the moment, no.
Well, it is, mate.
It isn't. The hybrids, we should have gone hybrid, we didn't. Hybrid is definitely the way forward. The country. The country should have gone for hybrid stuff, yeah. But hybrid, you know, if... I'm not going to go into all the details about cars and stuff. I do like cars and things, but the hybrid... I
will chalk you up alongside the think tanks and the fossil fuel lobby and the Tory politicians as someone who welcomes this policy.
I just welcome it because of the pay bracket. I mean, I think if you're not in my pay bracket, you're not struggling like I am every day, then it's very easy to
Which is why I really wanted you to talk me through the numbers, but we can't because we don't know what they'll be when your boiler conks out.
Well, do you know what they'll be when my boiler conks out?
No. But I know you get $7,500 towards a heat pump.
At the moment. That was from yesterday. But
yeah, I know.
What's it going to be in 5 years' time?
That's gone up.
But what's it going to be in 10 years' time then, James? What's the figures for me? If you could tell me, that'd be great.
Well, and when I can, you can tell me whether it's a good policy or not.
Exactly. There you go.
But you've already told me that you think it's a good policy.
I think it's a good policy for me at the moment, yeah. It's going to make a big difference. It's eased it off. It's given me another 5 years, but I haven't even got to worry about it now for another 5 years. My whole life would change.
But it wasn't coming in until 2030, which is seven years away.
It's 7 years' time, but there's another 5 years on top of that now, James. This is the point.
We're going round in circles. I'm seriously, I'm chalking you up. James, I think what you should have come on, if you'd come on and said my boiler is going to conk out in 10 years, this would have gone a lot better for you.
I think it's gone well for me.
I'm sorry, that sounds wrong. But if you'd have made more sense if you'd said my boiler's going to conk out in 10 years. Because as it stands, your boiler is conking out before the new deadline and before the old deadline.
So you concentrate on my boiler. The point I'm trying to make.
What do you mean concentrate on your boiler? It's the only thing you've spoken about.
It's not. I spoke about cars. I spoke about.
And then you said you didn't want to.
One of my children. Here's something you said about landlords, right? Which you were quite sneering about.
No, I wasn't.
You did. You said landlords won't have to insulate so that poor people get cold.
That's not sneering. That's just true.
But that's a generalisation, which is bad. There's a lot of good landlords out there. Now, I've got one of my children...
And the good ones will not have a problem with insulating their properties.
Oh, you say that? So all good landlords are rich, are they?
No, all good landlords will be insulating their properties.
Good landlords don't
in order to bring down the cost of the fuel bills for their tenants.
Now, one of my children rents, okay, and they're with the good landlords, and they pay a very fair rent, and they negotiate with the landlord on improvements and stuff like that. That guy now has got more time, A lot of landlords are actually kicking people out and selling the houses.
Right.
Because of the new things, and that's true.
So we're down with the landlords, and we're down with the... Well, what are we down with? The people selling second-hand petrol cars, and we're down with the theoretical boiler replacements between 8 and 12 years hence.
And all you're talking about, James, is what they've done in the past. I'm saying these should be Labour policies, and they're not.
Yep, you began by saying that.
I'm very disappointed.
But of course, if they change their mind this often, how do you know they're not going to change it again?
When's the last time they changed their mind? I'm glad they changed their mind.
Yesterday, Tim.
Politicians should change their mind.
Yesterday. So in July, he swore blind he was not moving on this one, and in September, he's moved.
It doesn't alter the fact that a lot of people it's going to benefit, James.
I know, and we've just listed them. We've just listed them.
You're going to get all the fanboys ringing you up, all the eco people ringing you up.
I've given you longer than anybody else because I really wanted to explore your arguments, and I think we can both agree that it was a helpful and informative experience for everybody involved. Anna is in St Albans. Anna, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
I'll tell you what it is. With so much unrest and so much fear within the Jewish community, most of these pro-Palestinian protests erupt in violence. There's something, there's hate that's called out, and I think...
No, they don't, because I have to be clear on this, they don't erupt in violence. There have been I think there were 9 arrests and there have been 5 charges, including people arrested for attacking... Well, I'll run you through it all, actually. There's been a racially aggravated public order offence by a person of no fixed abode who allegedly shouted racist abuse. There's a public order offence after a can of beer was allegedly thrown at a protester in Whitehall. There's been an actual bodily harm charge after an officer was allegedly assaulted and suffered a head injury, which also happened at the Countryside Alliance March a few years ago. And then you've got another racially aggravated public order offence relating to an allegedly racist placard. And then you've got a 16-year-old boy who can't be identified because of his age, has been charged with a public order offence after directing verbal abuse at officers. So you understand I can't let you say they always erupt into violence when they categorically don't.
Well, there is a lot of hate. I mean, they're looking
let's
for...
not gloss over it. You have to accept that you cannot say they always erupt into violence when they categorically don't.
And but there are things that the police won't and can't pick up on.
If that's the basis of your position, then your position becomes untenable immediately.
There is hate. Would you not agree with that?
There's hate everywhere. There's hate on the West Bank at the moment. You've seen what the American Secretary of...
Can I say anything?
Yes, of course you can, as long as it's true.
When you think about the fear that Jewish people are feeling all over the country, something that exacerbates that and something that makes them feel even more scared. I mean, there are no Jewish people that would feel comfortable to go into a Palestinian protest, and even the word
there were Jewish people on it. There were Jewish people on the march, and you've seen the footage from Central Station in New York as well of Jewish people protesting.
They're far extremists, and in terms of their support, their anti-Israel narrative. But that it's not. But if the fact is that people would be scared to go to a protest like that, whereas in direct contrast to that,
I'm sorry you feel I'm interrupting you, but if you say things that aren't true, I have to. There were Jewish people on the march on Saturday.
Okay. But the majority...
So they wouldn't be... You can't say they'd be scared to go, can you?
It is very scary. It is very scary.
No, I'm not disputing that you're scared. I'm just disputing your claim that it always erupts into violence and that Jewish people would be too scared to attend to demonstrate their sympathy for Palestinian people being killed. Because neither of those things are true.
No, what I'm not saying is that people can't march in solidarity, but the fact is it's a protest which ends up often being anti-Israel. There were 3 women who were wearing pictures
out of 100,000 people.
That's not the point. The point is
of course it's the point. Of course it's the point, because you can call those people hateful, you can call those people insightful, but you can't call the march a hate march. Because of what 3 women did.
Between a march and a protest rather than a vigil or like solidarity, there's a big difference.
Well, you can call it whatever you want.
With hate. No, but there is a difference. You can't dispute that.
I can dispute anything I want.
Standing peacefully in vigil and market and thinking about the people that hurt the victims, etc. And absolutely, I think no one wants to see.
So it's the fact that they're walking.
Civilians.
It's the fact that they're walking.
It has a much angrier tone.
Well, there was huge anger about all the Palestinians being killed, just as there was huge anger about all the Israelis killed on October the 7th. You must have been angry. You must have been angry.
I was devastated.
Okay.
It was heartbreaking.
Well, I was angry.
There's a very different... Well, there's a very different...
I was very, very angry. I don't know if you heard the show. I was absolutely livid.
Yeah, but what were you angry about?
The murder of 1,400 Israelis.
But was that anger directed at the horrific terrorists?
Of course it was.
Was that compassion and devastation for the victims?
It was both. Unthinkable, unjustifiable, intolerable were the words that I used to describe what Hamas had done. Heartbreaking, utterly, utterly devastating were the words that I used to describe the victims. So why can't people be angry? Why can't people be angry about Palestinians being killed as well?
I just want to shout out that the first day that you did your show was brilliant. You were really compassionate, really kind, really sensitive, absolutely.
And really angry.
Yes, but I think there's more anger. It's about compassion and being devastated.
And being angry.
Do something.
And being angry. So if I'm allowed to be angry about the killing of Israelis, why can't I be angry about the killing of Gazans? Why can't people march in anger at the killing of Palestinians?
It's about compassion. That's the difference.
Okay. So how do people show their compassion?
Anger then says, who can I fight? Anger is who can I punish? Who can I...
Well, and that's why I had to pick you up at the beginning on the claims that it always erupted into violence when it simply doesn't. So no one's really looking for a fight.
Anger.
No one's looking for a fight.
I don't mean violence I mean violence as in anger, and and that leads on to who can I blame?
You can't, unfortunately. Suella Braverman might want to outlaw anger, but even she would struggle to pull that one off, Anna. You can't tell people what they can and can't be angry about any more than I would dream of telling you.
Absolutely, but we can have expectations.
Go on.
The anger then channels into anti-Israel.
Well,
that is what happens.
And then it becomes problematic. But until it does, it isn't.
But
when you say anti-Israel, you could say anti-Israeli army, anti-Likud.
But that's not true.
Well, I don't know that you can read the minds of everybody.
Very interesting. I don't know if you've looked at the works of the late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs.
I'm familiar with some of his work, yes.
He has an incredible video that he's explaining how sometimes actually anti-Zionism is the new anti-Semitism. How it's changed over from the Middle East.
You're going a little bit off message now, because what we're talking...
saying that it's not anti-Israel, it's also anti-Semitic.
I'm not. I'm saying you can't read anybody's mind. There are plenty of people in Israel who've got huge problems with what is going on. Are they anti-Semitic?
And that's what I believe Suella Braverman...
Are they anti-Semitic?
No, people can have issues with the policies.
People can be angry about policies, and they can be Jewish, and they can be angry with Israeli policies, but you wouldn't dream of calling them anti-Semitic.
But I haven't heard any pro-Palestinian march that's come out to condemn Hamas.
Well, how much attention have you been paying? How many of them have you spoken to?
Plenty.
Really?
Yeah, it's very interesting having conversations.
But you were too frightened to attend. You were too frightened to attend.
But I would never go to a protest.
So when did you talk to them?
Other people.
So when did you talk to them?
I've spoken to individuals.
Yeah, when?
With their opinions.
When?
Over the last couple of weeks.
How?
And there's always an excuse.
But how have you spoken to these? How have you spoken? No, of course you can't. Not if you're going to come on my radio and say things that aren't true.
But it is true.
Well, of course it isn't. Every single...
Ariana Grande concert.
Well, I don't want to imagine that. I'm talking about marches. No, stop it.
I feel bad for the people that were killed, but
you're making stuff up again.
Very, very frustrated.
You're making stuff up again.
No, I'm not. That's the exact same parallel.
You're having an imaginary conversation about a completely different atrocity.
No, but what I'm saying to you is the fact is that there needs to be condemnation.
Just before you go, where is your expression? I know you would avail yourself of this opportunity, your compassion for the people being killed in Gaza now.
Absolutely. I said that straight away. I said that earlier on. I said I do not want to see any innocent civilians, and it's horrific, and it's heartbreaking, and I read an article...
So would you call for it to end, then?
I would call for Israel to do whatever it can to...
Well, you can't have it both ways, can you?
It's called self-defense.
Okay, well, that's not called compassion, then.
And they've
no, that's fine. We got there in the end.
It is compassion, of course there is compassion.
Well, no, because the people marching are calling for a ceasefire, and you're calling for it to complaining that other people aren't being compassionate. So the people calling for the killing to end are the angry ones who are causing fear, and you calling for it to continue are the compassionate one. Do you see where you've ended up, Anna?
No,
you probably don't, do you? Mike's in Northwich in Cheshire. Mike, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. Firstly, let me outline my position on the royal family. I couldn't give two hoots in a way. I'm not a royalist. I'm not an anti-royalist. They're just part of our society. So I won't be buying Harry's book. I also don't read the right-wing press. My politics are more aligned with your own than going out and buying the Telegraph or the Mail.
It's not the right-wing press on this one. It's every media outlet in the country, radio, TV, newspapers. They've all been pretty much towing the boasting line for 48 hours.
Well, one thing I would say, and it's just a slightly different slant on this, and I never thought he was boasting, so that's the first thing. You know, he's speaking factually about what happened when he was in the Afghanistan war. What I feel is, unfortunately, we do live in a world of extremism, political extremism, religious extremism, etc. Were his comments not ill-advised in that, you know, not necessarily an attack on Harry or his children or his family, but a more generalised attack, such as the Manchester Arena, such as the London Bridge, such as all the things we've seen in the last 5 years, could he have stirred that kind of feeling and left the country with a security risk for a retaliation attack?
I understand your question, and I also understand that you are not. I mean, really, we're talking about him being portrayed as boastful, and I appreciate that that's not the question that you phoned in to answer. So let's say that all of your points are valid. Why did the media not make them in 2013 when he first told this story? Why does the front of the Sun say hero prince in missile strike on commander in 2013, and then in 2023, in response to identical detail, it's portraying him as profoundly foolish and dangerous? That's the question you need to answer, because that's the nature of this phone-in, Mike.
Going back to 2013.
Yes.
Well, there's a couple of points I'd like to make on that.
Okay.
Going back to 2013, we hadn't had. I don't think we'd had. I'm talking from memory. The scale of terrorist attacks that we'd seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
We had. We'd had bigger ones.
Had we?
Yeah.
Okay, London 2005.
We'd had 7/7 and we'd had 9/11, mate.
Yeah.
That's why we were fighting the Taliban.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to give you a history lesson, but that one's not going to wash, is it? So what else have you got?
The other one is, the media can write and be as irresponsible as they wish to be, as we all know.
Yes.
This has come in an autobiography written by Harry's own fair hand, albeit ghostwritten, and they are words that he has approved for publication.
Yes.
Into, whatever.
Yes. And they're very measured and careful words. And again, I appreciate you haven't phoned in to answer the questions I was asking, but the question is, why would the newspapers misrepresent those very carefully weighed words? Why would they print an interpretation of this story that is a million miles away from the words that he actually considered and put to paper?
Yeah, possibly. But
it's not possibly. It's a question. Why would they do it? I mean, most soldiers can't tell you precisely how much death is on their ledger. In battle conditions, there's often a great deal of indiscriminate firing, but in the age of Apaches and laptops, everything I did in the course of 2 combat tours was recorded, time-stamped. I could always say precisely how many enemy combatants I'd killed, and I felt it vital never to shy away from that number. Among the many things I learned in the army, accountability was near the top of the list. What's irresponsible about that?
Well,
it's the opposite of irresponsible. He's literally taking responsibility for what he's done. In his own words.
Is there an element of post-rationalisation here? Because in the transcript, I admit I haven't got the book, the transcript...
Well, we're on a bit of a hiding to nothing here, because you don't want to answer any of the questions that I'm asking, and you haven't read the book, and you think you're completely immune to the right-wing interpretations of the story that seem to have miraculously informed your own position.
I've seen a transcript of the passage in question.
Yes.
And there is
which bit do you object to?
Post-rationalisation in the interview you did last night, because he doesn't mention support for veterans in that passage.
He doesn't need to.
Well, that's your interpretation.
But I've written 2 books, Mike, and I promise you, very, very few points, if any points, certainly not on every page or every chapter, do I say the reason why I'm writing this bit of the book is in order to ... I just write it, mate. I know why I'm writing it. You don't. Hopefully you'll work it out when you read it. So what do you think his reason was for very carefully explaining and taking responsibility for killing Taliban then, if it wasn't to, A, deal with his own situation, and B, help people who can't get the help he's received to deal with his own situation?
It's an autobiography, and he's just telling you about his life.
Yes. And for a reason.
Money?
Okay, there we go. But you don't take any of your leads from the right-wing media. And you don't care about the royal family, and you're completely objective and unbiased on this issue. Mate, you've wasted both of our time. Ron's in Maidstone. Ron, what would you like to say?
Hi. This is my first time call, but it is my first time with you, and I enter it with some, a couple of confessions and also some trepidation, because I'm sort of half your age and also recovered from a brain injury, which has left me with less cognitive ability than I had before. But nonetheless, I'll have a go. But only on a couple of points.
Ron?
What?
What's at? What are you going to have a go at?
The main thing is your point about he should, because he constructed and led the construction of the rules, he should know every detail of the rules. Now, look, I'm no longer, though I confess, I have been I was 50-50 on Brexit, but I have been a Boris fan for his leadership qualities and his humour, and as a comedian. But he should never have been Prime Minister. More the role that he'd be suitable for, if there was a role ever in a party, would be more of a chairman type role if you take it in the sort of company structures. He's not a chief executive. He doesn't have the cognitive abilities, doesn't have the detail abilities that are required.
Yes, I
for
agree.
That role.
I could see him in a sort of Jeffrey Archer type party starter.
He's the wrong man in that role. Probably the best man in the role is the one we've got currently. I wasn't a particular fan of Sunak either, but I am becoming one.
Okay.
And I'm more a fan of Sunak than I am of his opponent, who will probably win. But they're both of a par, really. They're both sort of detail men. They're not leaders. They're not charismatic. And the country at the moment could do with a bit of optimism and charisma. And
well, I'll pause you there and just ask you to talk us through what the benefits of having charisma in Downing Street for 3 years were.
No, I don't want to say that because I don't think that's. I think it was the wrong.
But we've tried charisma, and look where it got us.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm saying that Boris was the wrong man for that job.
But he has charisma.
Yeah. And so, maybe as a chairman or as a rebel round, but he should not have been Prime Minister.
No.
But the thing that my main point was,
yes,
I think in the role that he had, he has every right to rely on advisors. Now, I've learned a little bit more this morning from some of your contributors, particularly that great guy who comes on and gives you all the technical stuff. I've learned a little more about some of the facts. I don't follow politics as closely as you do. You're miles in advance of me, so you could beat me up as
I wouldn't dream of that, Ron. I wouldn't dream of beating up anyone.
Well, no, look.
Let's just zone in on it. The thing you rang in about. Come on. Well, the thing you rang in about, what is it? What do you want to say?
Yeah, it's that. I think he had every right
to
take the position of I've appointed people who I've given trust and responsibility to. I ask them if it's okay for me to do this probably in a fairly thoughtless way. He asks, is it okay to do this? Yes, it is, and he goes in.
No. Well, number one, that's not really what he's claiming. Because he's not simply claiming it about the parties he was at. He's claiming that's what he was told about all the parties as well. So he stands up in the House of Commons and says there weren't any parties, Ron. Whose fault was that, do you think?
Lack of detail again. It's his fault. Look, I'm not saying
it's not a lack of detail, mate. You're in a room, you're in your garden with 40 people drinking booze, and you stand up in the House of Commons and you say there weren't any parties. Whose fault is that?
He's responsible for that.
Well, there we are.
Yeah, but I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing he's blameless. Nor am I arguing that he shouldn't be going through what he's going through.
Right. And what are you arguing on, mate? With respect.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the respect. I'm arguing with your point.
Yeah.
That you made earlier.
Yeah.
That the man who made all the rules should be in
and had the job of explaining them as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. At the top of explaining them.
Yes.
Now, the people at the top of business. You're
going off on another one, mate. I just listen. Let me tell you what I think you're saying. You're saying that the man in charge of explaining the rules to the country could not have been expected to understand them.
Sorry, the line broke up then.
So what I think you're saying is that the man in charge of explaining the rules to the population could not have been expected to understand those rules.
I think I could hold that argument.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Because
shall I say it again? Just in case. His job is to explain the rules, but he can't be expected to understand them.
No, his job wasn't to explain the rules. His job was to tell someone to explain the rules.
No, he was there at the podium. You saw him all the flipping time, telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing. Sing happy birthday, wash your hands. So you can't seriously sustain...
That wasn't explaining the rules. That's communicating certain aspects of the rules. Now,
right, what's the difference between communicating and explaining?
Well, it's semantic.
Well, what's the difference? Because you just said there was a difference. You said that's not explaining, that's communicating. What's the difference?
Well, communicate. Okay, it's a semantic difference, but no, I don't want to get into that because I think it's taking me down the rabbit hole.
But you said it. You literally said that wasn't explaining. That was communicating. So either you agree that that's nonsense, or you explain to me what the difference is. It's not tricky.
It's quite tricky in my.
Well, it isn't. You just say, sorry, James, it was his job to explain them. And yes, I am arguing that the bloke whose job it was to explain them couldn't have been expected to understand them.
He can explain the top line, communicate what the behaviour which he wants to wants to create, and I think he did that rather well.
Do you?
I think I think he did it rather well. I think he got us to obey the rules. No, the rules.
But he couldn't obey them himself.
Well, he did divert from.
So he understood them well enough for you to understand them, but not well enough for himself to understand them. Is that where we're going next with this argument?
Well, I understood them and obeyed them. So,
yes.
I suffered some of the things which your listeners suffered, and I don't want to go into them. But I did have family situations which were very, very hurtful and very difficult.
And he was having parties. His colleagues were wheeling wine into Downing Street in a suitcase and puking up all over the corridors. But you're here to defend him.
Look, I'm not really defending him.
Well, what are you doing then, Ron?
You exaggerate very well. Look, you communicate.
What did I exaggerate? I'm going to. What did I exaggerate?
Your biased position.
I'm not communicating. I'm explaining. What do I exaggerate?
What do you exaggerate?
Yeah.
Well, you exaggerate the position that he is a totally flawed individual and has no value at all and should be hung and drawn and quartered.
Well, I've never used the phrase hung, drawn and quartered. What would you point to as evidence of his value?
Okay.
Or integrity. Best example of Boris Johnson's integrity in 5 is...
Oh, I can't do that. I couldn't...
Well, so I'm not exaggerating then, am I? You can't think of a single thing that points to the man possessing a single scintilla of integrity. I could argue I haven't gone far enough in analysing him. You're a fan and you can't think of a single quality the man's got.
No, I'm not a fan. I'm an ex-fan.
Yeah, all right.
I've told you straight up.
But you're here to defend him, so point to something that looks like integrity.
No, I'm not here to defend him.
Ron.
That's not my purpose. My purpose is to pull you up on one particular aspect of your communication this morning.
Yes, and that is the idea that the man in charge of explaining the rules should not have been expected to understand them. And here you are.
In detail.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can agree. We can agree to this. Who do you think should have been able to understand them in government?
Well, they should all be able to understand them.
Except him.
No, including him. Of course, he should expect you to understand.
We've got a full circle now, because you said a moment ago he shouldn't have been expected to understand the rules he was in charge of explaining or communicating to the rest of the country.
I think you've probably beaten me.
I think you need to stop seeing it like a battle. And just see it as stop seeing it like a battle or some sort of pugilistic encounter, because you keep saying words and I keep telling you facts. So it's not me that's beaten you, it's you.
Very good.
Or it's whoever put these ludicrous ideas in your head in the first place, up to and including anyone who spent the morning arguing that you can't realistically expect the man in charge of formulating and explaining the rules to actually understand the rules. So it's perfectly reasonable for him to turn to some minion and ask them to explain the rules to him. It's their fault you've ended up in this position, not mine. Not even yours.
Okay, look,
All right.
You argue extremely well.
Not arguing. I'm not arguing. You're saying words. I'm telling you facts.
Oh, come on. Facts are matter. There are very few facts in life.
Yeah?
I think you'd agree with that.
Well, I wouldn't, actually.
Most facts are constructed of words.
Okay. And here are some words. It is absolutely absurd to pretend to believe or to truly believe that the man in charge of explaining the rules to an entire population could somehow be excluded or exempted from understanding them himself. Have a great day. Chet's in Leicester. Chet, what do you reckon?
The thing is, he's the best out of the bunch, and the bunch isn't very good, so the pool of talent is...
So he's the least minging grape in the bunch?
Yeah, but that's going across the benches as well. That's not just in the Tory party. I think it is. I think you don't like the guy about the sounds.
I did. I liked him to start with. Well, I don't know if I liked him, but I certainly thought, oh, thank goodness. I breathed a big sigh of relief when he got in and did the professionally accountability and integrity speech, because I thought, he really must have hated what's gone on with Boris Johnson, but you're better inside the tent than outside it. So he, a bit like Keir Starmer when Jeremy Corbyn was Labour leader, he thought, I'm gonna stay close to power, but I don't agree with that, because... So what do you think he was doing?
No, I think in order for him, I think there's two things. He's no angel, but he's the best out of the bunch that's there. Now, in terms of...
What's he good at?
Well, in terms of having a successful and a stable government, he has to keep all the...
What's he good at? What's he personally good at?
I think he's the best out of the bunch.
No, you can't just keep saying that. What's he good at?
Not being Keir Starmer, not being Boris Johnson, not being Liz Truss, not being David Cameron.
Why bring Keir Starmer into it?
Because he's potentially the next Prime Minister.
Yeah, but why would not being Keir Starmer be an attribute for Rishi Sunak?
Well, the fact that Keir Starmer was complete chums with Jeremy Corbyn...
Well, Rishi Sunak was complete chums with Boris Johnson.
But you didn't have a massive anti-Semitic issue in the Conservative Party.
No, but he's on the record. He's on the record as being Islamophobic.
Who, Rishi Sunak?
No, Boris Johnson. Keep up.
No, I am keeping up. It just obviously when you mentioned, you didn't mention him by name, did you? So obviously I wasn't aware of who you're talking about at that point. But
I can't be responsible for your failure to keep up. I've got enough going on in the studio. So Keir Starmer was complicit in Jeremy Corbyn's anti-Semitism. Therefore, yes. Rishi Sunak was complicit in Boris Johnson's Islamophobia. It's just sounding a bit desperate, really. But I take it. I mean, No,
I don't. It's not desperate.
Well, I can only tell you. No, I said you're sounding a bit. You're sounding a bit desperate, which is what I can hear. Tom Watson gets demonised by the right-wing media because he came closer to bringing down Rupert Murdoch than anybody else in the last 70 years, mate. I think you need to get on Google.
When Tom Watson sits and demonstrates in London and then turns around to a bunch of people who are vandalising the Indian High Commission and turns around and says, you supported us, now it's our time to support you, and then gets voted to the House of Lords, and kind of alienates me.
Yeah, and this is you answering the question of what Rishi Sunak's good at.
Yeah, but as I started off, he's the best at the bunch that we've got.
OK. That's not an attribute. It's something that he's good at. Last chance?
I think he launched the furlough scheme. He saved loads of jobs. Now, it's not his fault.
What were the alternatives?
The alternatives were not helping businesses and putting everybody on social.
Well, he did do that. That's what the furlough was.
No, but he kept jobs going, didn't he?
But that's what the furlough was. It paid people for not working. If that's not a definition of putting people on the social, then what is?
No, well, I think somebody else would have turned around and said, well, we can't help businesses.
Then the whole country would have gone bankrupt. Would have been completely broken.
If the employers have to let you go, then you'll have to rely on the state and would have to help in terms of benefits.
So he brought in a socialist. He brought in a socialist policy then.
He did, yes, he did.
So Rishi Sunak is good at socialism, but you like him because he's not Keir Starmer. That's a absolutely vintage call, chat, mate. Have a great weekend. June's in Heathrow. June, what would you like to say?
It seems to be that people seem to think that the inheritance tax is for people who've got money. My sister died at the age of 56. Her husband died when her son was 7. Yeah. She worked 3 jobs to keep the roof over her head and to keep everything going for them.
Yes.
Because of where she lives, the house cost more money, but she had to live there because she wanted to be surrounded by family to help her support her after her husband died.
Yes.
When she died, he had to pay £40,000 in inheritance tax. Now, all she had left was the money to bury her and her house.
And her what?
Now,
the money to bury her and what? Your phone went down.
Sorry, money to bury her and her house. That's the only 2 assets she had when she died.
Right.
Now, she worked three jobs to keep that roof over her son's head.
And there was no mortgage on it?
And no, there was no mortgage on it.
Okay.
Because they paid the mortgage off, but there was...
I mean, you put me in a very difficult situation, because she could easily have had a small mortgage on it and only worked 1 job.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I say she's got no mortgage on it. I know she had a loan on it,
Right, well that
is a different thing to a mortgage, isn't it?
Yeah, but it would still come off the estate. So for 40,000, so there was about 100 grand of asset over the 300 or over the $500,000. So she left about £600,000.
Yeah.
That's what
the house is worth.
And
it's
your nephew had to pay
semi-detached.
No, I know
house.
you told me that, but so it's a £600,000 estate, and your nephew had to pay £40,000 inheritance tax.
Yeah.
So 560 grand clear.
And I know, but it's still.
No, I know, but it's still 560 grand, isn't it?
Life.
Yeah. How much did she pay for the house?
But she's worked all. I don't know how much she paid for it.
When did she buy it?
They come back from a. Oh, she bought it in 1982.
Right, so she probably paid about a tenth of what its final value was, which is why she had no mortgage.
Yeah, but I still don't think it's right.
Why not?
But someone that's worked all their life.
Yeah, but she got paid for that. She got paid for working all her life.
And she paid tax for that as well.
Well, she didn't pay tax on the £500,000 that she made simply by owning a property for 40 years.
No, I'm sorry. I just think it's.
You don't have to apologise. Just correct me if I've got anything wrong.
It should be means tested. If you've got these
it is means tested.
She lived in another. So if she lived in another part of the country to keep away from the family who've got no support to look after because she's a widow.
Yeah.
She lived in another part of the country. He wouldn't have had to have paid that.
No. Because the house would have been worth less money. So we'd have inherited less.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I just think it's wrong.
No, I know you do. You keep saying that, but I just
think it's wrong.
Yes, I know you do. But just to clarify, nothing I've said is wrong. Everything I've described to you is correct. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
But if you're working 3 jobs to keep a house going...
Yeah. But there's no mortgage on the house, so you didn't... Well, this is why I say you put me in a difficult position, because you're reaching for... Well, that would have come off the estate, so what was left is what gets taxed, and if it was in excess of £500,000, and there's a 40% charge on anything in excess of £500,000 after the loan has been paid. But and I think I understand where your sense of injustice comes from, but the number of jobs she did isn't really relevant. She had assets worth £600,000, which puts her in probably the top 10% of the population, however many jobs she worked.
For a 3-bedroom, falling apart house.
Well, it might have been falling apart, but that doesn't change its value, June. You must understand what the house is worth is what the tax is determined by, not how many jobs your sister had or whether or not the window frames needed painting.
It is, not what it's worth.
No, it's how much it's worth. No one says we're going to have a Surrey tax or we're going to have a Blackpool tax. It's how much the house is. If you live in a £2 million house in Blackpool, then you're going to pay £400,000 in inheritance tax.
Can you imagine a house, a £2 million house in Blackpool, what you get?
Yes, I can, yes.
I'm sure it would be less than a 3-bedroom semi that's falling apart, would you?
Yes, it would, but the 3-bedroom semi is worth £600,000 in the area where your sister's house was. I don't know what I can do to help more, really, with this.
Well, I still think it's.
I know you do.
I just don't think it's right.
Yes, I know, but now we can agree that your reasons for thinking that don't really stand up, do they? It's just a feeling.
I still don't think it's
right.
I know,
but it's a feeling, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's an emotion.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because your sister's tied up in it and your nephew's tied up in it, but the tax can't take into account your feelings. It can't be an emotional driven tax. It just does. She should have been able to leave everything she had to her son. But then again, who shouldn't be allowed to leave everything they had to their son? Someone in a £1 million house, someone in a £5 million. They've got to draw the line somewhere, and they drew it in a place that meant that your nephew got £560,000 out of a £600,000 estate, which most people listening to would probably think was quite a good result, albeit that it was tragic that he lost his parents so young. Leon is in St John's Wood. Leon, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Yeah, my first time calling.
Welcome aboard. You've picked a nice subject to break your duck with.
I was thinking that there's 2 sides to the point I was going to make, and one of which is that I think Sunak has got in a position where, I mean, he's got a deck of cards that he can use, obviously, to appoint ministers in whatever roles he wants, and he's got strategy behind each of them. I think Nadeem Zahawi was looked upon as a reasonably successful minister in his previous roles. He was liked within the Conservative Party. So,
for sure.
So in that case, it's more difficult for Rishi Sunak to give him the boot at the first, smell of something sleazy. I think he wants to appear to his whole party as well as the public as being given him the opportunity to be proven to have been guilty of something egregious.
I think you're right, but that road, by most accounts, that road ran out about a week ago. So that last week, when it's become absolutely clear, not least because of the legal threats, the threats to take legal action against people saying things that were true, and the account from the ethics advisor of claiming I attended a meeting with HMRC with my advisors, but I didn't realise I was under investigation. I thought they were just asking me some questions. Come on, mate, you believe that? I've got a bridge to sell you.
I mean, if HMRC
seven breaches of the ministerial code.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, tax avoidance, I'm trying to use my words carefully,
of course,
as opposed to evasion, isn't necessarily illegal, but obviously it would breach the ministerial code. If it was evasion, then there'd be no question. Really,
but it was so. Listen, I'll use myself as an example. January the 26th, so that is the middle of last week. If he goes, Sunak's failure to get across the facts and act sooner looks awful. If he somehow clings on, the stench of sleaze will be unbearable. Again, it's the threat to sue for accurate reporting that is indefensible.
And the second side of my point was going to be that I think politicians in general, not just this current government, they seem to operate on the perception that they will tolerate a certain level of, sleaze is not the word I want to use, to the extent that they think will play well or play well enough in the public domain. I know this is what you're saying is directed at the current Tory government, but if you think back to previous Labour government, I think, and you talk about bullying before, John Prescott had 14 cases of bullying raised against him. So did Gordon Brown had cases of bullying raised against him, but they operated the government, and John Prescott was seen as a necessary key cog in that Labour government to keep various elements on side for Tony Blair and Gordon Brown.
Well, that would work as a parallel with Dominic Raab, but not with Nadeem Zahawi.
Well,
you're going back a decade and a half. No, Priti Patel was found by an independent inquiry by the ministerial advisor to be a bully, and thousands of pounds was paid out in compensation to her victim. And the independent advisor, resigned when Boris Johnson failed to act. So you can't offer up John Prescott or Gordon Brown as with respect, as a sort of flimsy parallel for that ugly saga, but neither can you offer up anything to do with bullying in the context of why Sunak didn't act sooner with Nadeem Zahawi.
Well, the point I was making is a wider point, I think.
Then let's draw it back to the current Labour Party, shall we? Rather than go back a decade and a half in desperate search for a fig leaf, and let's look at what Keir Starmer does with allegations. The last leader of the Labour Party is no longer in the Parliamentary Labour Party, and the former Chief Whip, Nick Brown, who faces allegations I don't know about, I don't know any detail about them, but the minute they were raised and an inquiry was launched, the whip was removed. So compare like with like, Leon, compare 2023 with 2023. Not with 2007.
Well, fair enough. Like I said, I was just, because you raised bullying with Priti Patel, I noticed the parallel. But sticking to 2023, I mean, the government is under the scrutiny that will, in theory, pick up every matter of concern for the public. We don't know that the Labour Party.
You're not addressing the simple question of the world, and his wife knew that Nadeem Zahawi was banged to rights. And let's be generous and give you the middle of last week as an obvious threshold for that realisation. He thought he could get away with it because of what Cummings had got away with, and because of what Patel had got away with, and because of what Braverman had got away with, and because of what, more than any of them, Johnson had got away with, again and again and again and again. So the question, and just to clarify, is why has Sunak failed so completely to distance himself from the depravity of that era?
Well, I think that Sunak made the decision that waiting the extra 5 days for this
then I'd say, why give Suella Braverman her job back then for the same offence?
But it's not the same offence. The Suella Braverman
breaching the ministerial code. It's the same offence.
well, he gave her a job back because he felt that he needed her support, and he needed the support around her to stay within power. He made
more than he needed to detach himself from the depravity of the previous era.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
I agree with you.
I don't disagree with that at all.
There it is. So prioritising, I don't know, political self-advancement above morality, integrity, professionalism and accountability.
But that's what every politician does,
Except
surely.
it isn't, is it, as we've just proved? That's why you have to go back to the middle of the 90s to come up with a fairly half-assed comparison. And you've got Nick Brown, who's currently suspended, and the last leader of the Labour Party, who's not even in the parliamentary party anymore.
But didn't Keir Starmer sit beside Jeremy Corbyn throughout all his scandals without raising a voice until he was kicked out?
He wasn't leader of the Labour Party, Leon.
But he could have left the party.
So now you're comparing a shadow Brexit secretary with a Prime Minister.
Well,
and also, this is why Sunak stayed with Johnson, isn't it? Because it's better to be inside the tent weeing out than it is to be outside the tent weeing in. So by all means, use Starmer in this way, but all you do is remind us of how long Rishi Sunak sat in the house next door to Boris Johnson. Not just a few seats down on the Labour front bench, mate. But, have another crack if you want, because I'm enjoying your acrobatics.
I'm making the point that neither Starmer or Sunak are particularly different from each other.
Except as leaders.
Well,
as leader, what would you point to in Starmer's conduct that you think stands comparison with Sunak's craven conduct?
Well, he's not in government, so he hasn't had.
No, he wasn't in government when he was sitting next to Jeremy Corbyn, mate. But you were playing that card 5 minutes ago. So as leader, what would you point at?
I don't know.
You just said they were the same. You said it live on national radio, so back it up.
I made the point that if it was about morality, Starmer could have walked out of the party.
As leader. You said as leader, they're the same. So give me an example of Starmer as leader.
I said as politicians.
No, you didn't. You said as leaders. What have you got?
That's not what I said, James. I said as politicians, they're the same.
So we're talking about Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister, and you're talking about Keir Starmer as Shadow Brexit Secretary. Just out of interest, before the news, can you think of any example at all from Keir Starmer's tenure as Labour leader that does speak of a sort of absence of professionalism, accountability and integrity comparable to Sunak's conduct over the last week?
I don't know of any levels of scandals.
10:32 is the time. Dominic Ellis has the headlines. Akhtar is in Tower Hamlets. Akhtar, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. My first time calling in.
Welcome.
Thank you. I was listening this morning, and I think what made me call is I think we all agree nobody wants war. And especially at this day and age with so many...
No, wait, just to pause you there, sorry.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin does.
Okay, so what I was trying to say is nobody wants war. I don't think Vladimir Putin wants war. So the narrative I think that we all seem to be getting or being pushed is Vladimir Putin is evil and he wants more a war and he invaded Ukraine. I get all of that. No,
that's not a narrative. Maybe the evil bit is a narrative. But if he doesn't want a war, you are at some point in our conversation going to have to answer the question of why he keeps starting them.
Sure. So I'll answer your question. So I think the point I'm trying to make is I don't think people understand why he's being provoked to invade Ukraine the way he did. I mean, you're pushing NATO on his borders. I mean, why not open up the diplomacy again? Why not talk about the agreements or the promises made not to expand NATO? I mean, nobody talks about that.
Well, they do. They do talk about that. No, I won't let you finish because you just asked. You literally said, "Why does nobody ever talk about that?" And I tried to start talking about it, and you told me to shut up.
No, but you interrupt me. I haven't even had a few words in.
But you've made several points, which I'm now going to work my way through. That's how it works. It's a conversation. It's not a soapbox.
Fine, let's talk about expansion of NATO on someone's border.
Okay, so what is it about Ukraine's autonomy that you have a problem with?
Nothing at all. I mean,
so it's up to Ukraine. It's up to Ukraine. No, you're doing it again. It's up to Ukraine whether or not they join NATO, not Vladimir Putin, surely.
No, I agree. But
we've dealt with that. Then what's next?
When you have US bases all around the world and Russia's saying just don't expand NATO. I mean, it hasn't been happening over the last 6 weeks.
But it's up to Ukraine. I know these are sort of popular
tubs to thump in certain circles, but it's up to Ukraine. It's not up to Vladimir Putin what Ukraine does. That's what being a sovereign nation means. If they want to host an American air base, it's up to them. They don't, as it happens.
Sure.
It wasn't up to them when they were stuffed to the rafters with Soviet-era nuclear missiles, which, of course, the Budapest Convention saw them surrender in return for promises from the West that they would be protected in the event of aggression from Russia. So now there's aggression from Russia. Why should we abandon the pledges that we made in the Budapest Memorandum?
I mean, there's so many pledges we abandon. We say we do, we don't do. We
27 wrongs don't make a right, mate. We're talking about the Budapest Memorandum on security assurances, and you're talking about sort of theoretical NATO expansion into countries that would actually welcome it.
James,
Akhtar.
Yeah, we could go. I respect your views, and
I'm not giving you views. I'm giving you facts.
Fine, I'm giving you facts as well.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're giving me the view that Vladimir Putin should get to decide which countries in Europe can join NATO, and that he should start a war if he's worried that a country he doesn't want to join NATO wants to join NATO. That's not only the opposite of democracy; it's the opposite of common decency, mate.
Fair enough. If it was the other way around and Russia was expanding,
if ifs and buts were pots and pans, there'd be no need of tinkers. But because I am respectful, I will answer your question. If NATO was launching wars on territory currently owned by Russia, I would fully expect Vladimir Putin to respond militarily.
Sure. So if Russia was expanding its borders all the way to our borders, how do you think we'd react?
It is.
No,
that's what the invasion of Ukraine means.
No.
Ukraine has a border with NATO countries. It has you literally just said if he was expanding to our borders, he is.
NATO. So Ukraine joins NATO, and then we put military bases at the borders of Ukraine.
You are falling to pieces in the most embarrassing fashion. First of all, you're arguing that it should be up to Vladimir Putin which countries get to join NATO. Then you ask, what would you do if he actually invaded up to our borders? I point out to you that he has. He already has.
No, if you're going to put military bases on these borders, of course he has a right.
But it's up to the country that hosts the bases whether or not those bases go there.
Countries? You have to see the interest. Like, who's pushing the country?
Oh, mate, you're going to have to take a lie down now and just work on the difference. Okay, so here's your house. Here is your house. Akhtar, pay attention, Akhtar. Pay attention. Okay? Here is your house. Who decides what goes in it?
James, it's not as simple as that.
Oh, it is. I think you'll find it is. It's coming up to 11:15. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I find, and no offence meant, Akhtar, but I will speak as I find that whenever people say to me live on the radio that we never talk about ... and then often I think, well, let's talk about it then, you realise that the reason why people never talk about ... is because it's a load of gibberish and nonsense. This idea that Vladimir Putin is provoked into military engagement it's Russian propaganda. I don't want NATO on my board. Tough. You've got a border. What's on the other side of it is nothing to do with you. You start invading, then you will be resisted. Putin's gamble, historically, will be that there won't be enough resistance, and that if he does start invading parts of what used to be the Soviet Union but doesn't want to be anymore, then the West won't do enough to stand up to him. So, again, with respect, mate, I think you should stop reading The Socialist Worker and just start reading The Room. Louise is in Dartford. Louise, what would you like to say?
Well, the first thing that I thought when Richie Sunak announced this was it just reminded me of how Liz Truss gave all the, the funding to Shell and the petrochemical industry instead of reducing our bills, I
don't quite follow. What did she do?
So I think when there was a discussion, didn't she give?
Well, you're supposed to be telling me, not you're supposed to be telling me, not asking me. I can't remember. But to tie in with what Alex said, you're suggesting that they are hand in glove with the fossil fuel establishment, if you like, the fossil fuel.
They are, definitely. But what I'd also like to say is that diesel, when he invented his engine, he invented it so it could run on, I can't remember if it's 7 or 9 different types of fuel.
But can you check these things before you ring in next time, please? I mean, honestly, if this was your homework, you'd be expecting the teacher to finish it.
No, I'm telling you that it can run on at least 7 different types of fuel. And one of those is hemp oil or vegetable oil, as we know. Hemp is a renewable crop, that is not cannabis. It's the male plant, which is not anything that will get you stoned or anything like that. But actually, it's a crop that grows.
Is that a full moon? James is in Wolverhampton. James, what made you pick up the phone?
The anger of this survey. It's a load of rubbish, honestly. Who have they been questioning? And probably mainly young people who've just got up. They haven't gone to work, been smoking weed last night, and to me,
are you all right?
No, I'm all right. I'm just saying that I'd like to know who they're questioning. Okay, right.
But for this survey, which we're not really talking about, they surveyed 11,000 black Britons and asked them about 16 topics, including Britishness, education, the criminal justice system.
It was black. Okay, black people. Right.
But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is what we mean, what you mean when you say you're proud to be British.
Right, I am proud to be British. Right.
What do you mean? What do you mean when you say that? What are you proud of?
I'm a British Indian, right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't support India as a cricket team. I actually support
so
England.
You passed the Norman Tebbit test, then?
No. Look. A lot of my friends are white English. Yeah, but it's been part of the community and doing the stuff that British people do, and maybe occasionally wearing an England football shirt,
But what are you proud of?
Proud of what Britain stands for.
What does it stand for? What does it stand for?
Fairness, equality.
It's one of the most unequal societies in the world.
Yes, but you get that everywhere. You get that.
So why are you proud of it then? You can't say I'm proud of all the fairness when there isn't any.
Look.
I'm looking.
I think James, you sometimes get it wrong. Yeah.
Of course I do, but you can't. You've got to answer the question that I'm asking. What are you proud of?
This is a great country. And if you don't like it, move.
If you don't like it, go and live somewhere else. But you need to put some flesh on the bones of what you're proud of, because if it's fairness and equality that you like, then you'd be even prouder to be Swedish, you see.
No,
you would, because fairness and equality are measurably superior in Scandinavia and most of Northern Europe. So it can't be that.
It probably is, but look, what I regard as being proud of what this country can do, like great events like the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham last year.
They're literally held in a different country every 4 years, mate, so you can't be proud of the fact that we did it, because they've all done it as well.
They were well organised.
So were the Beijing Olympics. So
come on, James, come on.
What do you mean, come on? It's not my fault you can't think of anything that is peculiar to being British.
There's a lot of things. Okay,
Go on then.
My friends drive British cars like Range Rovers. They can easily go out and get a German car. Yeah. Okay. Their reliability isn't brilliant. Yeah.
What are you talking about now? Anyway,
there's a lot of things to be proud of being British.
Range Rovers?
Okay. If you didn't like this country...
No one's saying you don't like this country. We all like this country. It's our home. I do like this country. It's my home, but what am I supposed to be proud of?
A lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
Which is why you're struggling to name anything then. And I think Range Rover's owned by an Indian company, isn't it?
Yes, but it's made in this country.
Well, okay. Well, so's my lunch. So's my lunch. It doesn't make me proud. What are you proud of?
There's a lot of stuff that we've got. A lot of that other countries haven't got.
Go on then. Like what? Like what?
Look.
I'm looking.
The health service, for a start, the health service might be a mess.
There you go. I like that. Right. The health service is...
It might be a mess, but we've got it.
We have.
In America, you have to pay for it.
You do.
Okay?
You do.
Right?
I bet there's plenty of other countries where you don't.
Okay, that's fine. Look, the reason why it's a mess is it's been used a lot. It's been used. Honestly,
I'm proud of it as well. Just out of interest, why did you start talking about kids smoking weed when you rang in?
No, I'm just saying, some of these surveys, when they criticise my city of Wolverhampton, they pick on...
No one's brought Wolverhampton into it.
Listen.
But you're slagging off your own country. You're slagging off the people in your own country that you're supposed to be proud of.
Look, some of them people probably need to be slagged off, Right. There's some good people. There's good people in this country.
Well, there's good people all over the world, and there's bad people all over, which is why the idea of being proud of a specific nation, although we all think we feel it, we find it, and I think you may have accidentally proved this for me, we find it actually very hard to pin down precisely what it is that we are supposed to be proud of, except possibly Range Rovers. Derek is in Orpington. Derek, what made you pick up the phone?
Hi, James.
Hello,
I heard the beginning of the conversation about the 15-minute cities and this Tory minister bringing it up and you dismissing it as a conspiracy theory. I just wanted to phone in because I'm a bit confused.
Okay.
I live in Kent, and I read a newspaper online called Kent Online. It's a newspaper. It's just a regional one. And last year and this year they were talking about Canterbury. And they were talking about the council there wanted to bring in what was known as a 15-minute city.
Yes.
Now, it was...
They have. They already have. It's incorporated into their policy plans alongside Ipswich and Bristol and several other councils as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing is, it says it's an approach to urban design that aims to improve quality of life by creating cities where everything a resident needs can be reached within 15 minutes by foot, bike or public transport.
Or bicycle.
Canterbury Council have taken the approach one step further to tackle congestion, which would see the city sit into 5 zones with residents banned from driving directly between each.
No, that's not true. You can't be banned from driving. But even if you were, that's not 15-minute city policy.
Well, they said that motorists would be unable to take simple journeys across the city and could face fines by being detected by number plate recognitions.
Yeah, that's the conspiracy. Yeah. And now, in Oxford, they introduced a 100 journey car limit on private vehicles going into 6 specific areas of the city. But that is designed to reduce the amount of cars on the road. It's not designed to reduce your freedom. You might not like it, and you might feel that it is a restriction on your freedom. But I think I can help you here. The key element of the conspiracy is the motivation for doing it. So why are they doing it? Answer, because they want fewer cars on the road, right?
Oh, yeah, I can understand that.
The conspiracy theorist answer is, why are they doing it? Because they want to control you and confine you to your home. That's the point. And Mark Harper is siding with the people who are trying to frighten you against the people, and most of the examples that are cited don't even include the traffic calming measures that you describe. They are literally designed to ensure that you have the amenities you need within 15 minutes of your front door.
No, that sounds absolutely great, but we don't sort of live in that world, do we? I mean, my nearest supermarket's a 20-minute drive away, or whatever. You know, I'd have to. If I didn't have a compliant car, I'd be paying this wretched ULEZ to get into it. And if you told me 2 years ago I'd have to pay £12, I don't. But some people would have to pay £12.50 to take their car off their drive.
But this is a drive towards a world in which there is a supermarket nearer to you. That's all it is.
But I can't see how they're going to do that, because the whole...
But they might not. They might not, but all the policy means is that they're going to try.
Well, I just don't understand, because everything's been working the opposite way, hasn't it? Because they've out-towned everything.
Well, now we're getting to the heart of it. So after 13 years of Tory rule, where the idea of having the amenities that you need on your doorstep is for a growing number of people absolutely out of reach, why would they be attacking plans to bring it back? Answer, because it highlights how badly things have gone for the last 13 years.
Well, the thing was, it was a Tory council that was trying to bring in this thing in Canterbury.
But I'm talking about at a national level. But then you have another question. If this is a good example of a Tory council trying to do it, why is Mark Harper claiming that it's only Labour councils?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's just all smear, isn't it?
I think it is. And I think it's designed to frighten us and make us think that there's places we can't go without our cars. There are already lots of places we can't go with our cars. You can't go into your local football ground. You can't drive it into your local shopping centre. There's lots of places you've got to park and walk. And in this case, it would include your house. You just would be able to walk to places. But he's trying to frighten people.
Yeah, it's just what horrible politics we've got, James, and it's on both sides.
I'll allow that. I'll allow that for now. I mean, I don't think you're going to get any shadow cabinet ministers standing up. And where is the Labour conference next week? Do you know, Derek?
No,
that's the Tories.
That's where the Tories are.
This is called.
No, I did hear it, but
this is called crowdsourcing. This is. I don't know where. I don't know where it is either, mate. But luckily, my producer will have the fact at her absolute be on the tip of her tongue. She won't have to look it up or anything. She'll know exactly where it's being held. It's in Liverpool. So I don't think you will get a shadow cabinet minister standing up in Liverpool next week and saying anything that gets filed under conspiracy theory. I just don't. So I'll give you they're as bad as each other, but on this specific example, pandering to the conspiracy theorists, they've set up a whole TV channel to do it. A lot of Tories queuing up to praise GBBs, even as it peddles a lot of these conspiracies as easily as the rest of us breathe. I don't think Labour are that bad.
Jury's out.
Well, I'll ring you back then. I'll ring you back when Labour conference is finished, and I'll ask you again.
Yeah, well, if I get to see or hear any of it...
Well, you can't cop out like that, Derek. You can't. That's like, so they have told some egregious lies, but they go to a different school. That's not allowed. But anyway, I hope I've explained a little bit about the confusion surrounding this issue, the idea that traffic calming measures are designed not to calm traffic, but to curtail our liberties. It plays very well, I think, to a certain type of motorist, not just a certain type of conspiracy theorist addict, but it is really, really dangerous for the reasons that are becoming ever clearer. Jackie's in Bexley. Jackie, what would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to say that all the aggravation it causes when people are protesting, blocking roads, the way to protest isn't by blocking roads, stopping ambulances, police cars, stopping the public getting to work. It just makes people angry, and it's pointless.
How did you feel about the Queen's funeral?
The Queen's funeral, that was organised.
Yeah, but my God, they shut a lot of roads.
Yeah, but that was organised. It wasn't. It's not like these protesters that just do it willy-nilly.
But you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go anywhere.
Everybody knew the Queen's funeral was on that day.
Yeah, but if you had a heart attack, it wouldn't make any difference, would it?
Yeah, but they had roads diverted.
Did they?
So
why can't they do that? Why can't they do that when it's Just Stop Oil then?
Because they just do it without letting people know. They just do it.
Yeah, but if they can get the police on the spot to do the arrests, then they can divert the roads that they used when it was the Queen's funeral. I mean, to be honest with you, we both know they didn't divert the roads. If you were in the West End of London, you couldn't go anywhere by car.
Yeah, but then who was going to work? Everybody was off work. Everything was closed.
We're talking about police cars and ambulances, aren't we, Jackie?
Yeah, but
they weren't off work.
There was a reduced service, though, wasn't there?
Well, that's terrible.
A lot of people were watching the funeral, were there at the funeral. It was organised. That's the difference. Well, these protests aren't organised.
Okay, so we should organise them then. They should. I mean, because what we've got to do is compare the disruption.
Yeah, if they want to organise them, that's fine. I haven't got any problems.
Even if it shuts down the whole city.
Sorry.
Even if it shuts down the whole city.
Well, you're not going to shut down the whole city.
Well, the Queen's funeral did.
One certain area.
The Queen's funeral did.
Yeah, we're not talking about the Queen's funeral.
I kind of am. I appreciate you don't want me to, but you can't object to police cars not being able to get through in a sort of theoretical sense, but be perfectly comfortable.
It's completely different. The Queen's funeral is organised. Things like that is organised.
Okay.
The public know what's happening that day, and you would avoid going to those areas.
When do you think the police should be able to arrest people who haven't done anything wrong yet?
No, they shouldn't be able to arrest people who haven't done anything wrong, but people gluing themselves to the road...
No, they can already arrest them. This is about people who haven't done anything wrong yet.
Yet?
Yes.
Why should you wait for somebody? If you know someone's going to do something
wrong...
How
do you know?
Well, you don't, do you? But if people, like you say, if you said earlier, if people are on parole, you know...
No, hang on, let's just rewind a bit. Because you said if you know somebody's going to do something wrong, and I said, how would you know? And you said, well, you don't, do you? But the law would allow the police to arrest people who haven't done anything wrong yet if the police fear that they might, or that they're about to. So when would you do that? When would you be in favour of that?
Well, I'm not saying I'm in favour of arresting somebody that hasn't done something wrong.
But that's the entire phone-in topic that we're having at the moment.
Well, you know, the thing is, I thought he was talking about how you feel about protesters and things like that.
No, definitely not, no. Because the point is, the police would say they've already got enough powers in those circumstances. You know, Charlotte Lynch, my colleague, got arrested just for watching a protest. She didn't even have any glue on her person.
That's totally wrong. That's totally wrong. I'm not.
But they want more. But they want more powers, Jackie. So you're saying that the powers they've already got led to something that's totally wrong, and now they want more powers?
Well, you know, I think in certain circumstances...
You keep saying you know. I know it's a figure of speech, but I really don't, because I don't know quite what you think you're in favour of or opposed to.
I'm opposed to these protesters acting like idiots.
Yeah.
That,
well, it should be we should all be allowed to act like...
do not know what paying into the tax system is.
Yeah, but
and
no, these lines, I'm familiar with these lines. I've heard them millions of times before, but we've just established that this is not the conversation in which those lines need to be rehearsed, because we're talking about the police being given new powers to shut down protests before they cause disruption.
Yeah, but you know, you can protest. You don't need to block roads. You don't need to do stupid things.
But they won't have blocked any roads, will they? Because they'd be arrested before.
Well, that's fine then. That's fine then.
So we're getting there now. So when do you think it's okay for the police to arrest people who haven't done anything wrong?
Right. But they're allowed to arrest then, are they, when they're blocking the M25?
No, if they've done that, they've already done something wrong. This is about... I can only explain it so many times, Jackie. This is about the police.
Well, they haven't done anything wrong, but what I'm saying is, they know...
So when? Just tell me when. When is it okay to arrest people who haven't done anything wrong?
The moment they start walking towards blocking the road is when they should be arrested.
Now, how do you know they're going to block the road? They might just be walking.
They're not going to just be walking. Common sense says, come on.
But the last protest did involve just walking. They were walking up the Strand slowly. That was their protest.
Blocking roads.
Walking slowly?
Blocking roads.
OK, so what speed should it be illegal to walk at?
I'm not saying it's illegal to walk, but what I'm saying is it's
blocking
all
roads.
About common sense, isn't it?
Blocking roads.
It's all about common sense.
Blocking roads.
It's all about common sense.
So I'm asking where your common sense leads you. At what speed should you be arrested for walking in the road?
I'm not talking about speed. I'm talking about the amount of people that are blocking access.
Yeah, but once they're blocking access, they've broken the law. They could be arrested. So why do they need new laws to arrest people who haven't done anything wrong yet? Because they don't.
What sort of laws they're talking about?
Well, I know what sort of laws they're talking about. That's why I'm hosting the phone-in.
You hear things from the government. Is any of it true?
Jackie.
At the end of the day, you hear about talking about immigration. I haven't got a problem. And the Jewish situation is completely different. Earlier on, listening to the conversation, it's unacceptable.
What's happening?
The immigration.
I feel that I sense you've rung 3 different phone-ins now, except the one that we're actually having.
I've been listening to it this morning, and I've been listening to it, and it's horrendous, because at the end of the day, there's not a problem with people coming in the country, immigrants coming into the country. Why
are we talking about this?
They're going to work. Well, because I want to get it out there, because the government are afraid to say anything.
Can't you go to a coffee morning?
To say anything nowadays.
Who's frightened to say anything nowadays? You haven't stopped talking for the last 6 minutes.
Well, there you go. I'm getting my point across.
So why are you frightened? Who's frightened? Who's frightened? I mean, to be fair, I'm not sure you are getting your point across, but I'm delighted that you feel you are. But who's frightened of saying anything? Who are these people?
But you're not allowed to say things in case you're being racist.
Like what?
You talk about immigration. When people talk about immigration, the one point I talk to a lot of people. I work in the public sector and talk to a lot of people.
About protest.
Yeah, but it is about protest.
So what aren't you allowed to say about immigration without being called racist?
You're not allowed to say that you don't think Britain should help. The problem is, let people in from the Ukraine, from war-torn countries, that are running for their lives.
Yeah.
But if you're running for your life, you stop in the first country that's safe.
Well,
England
that's Poland.
Is the first country that's safe.
That's Poland. That's Poland.
Well, this isn't, but England isn't the first country that's safe.
No, but if you're running out of Ukraine, you should stay in Poland, or possibly Estonia. My geography's not as good as it should be.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, you're getting people coming across illegally on boats.
But why were you talking about Ukraine?
Because the war in Ukraine.
What about the war in Syria?
Sympathy.
They've just shot a politician in Afghanistan for being a woman.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. You know, I'm talking about war-torn countries.
Yeah, like Afghanistan and Syria.
Sorry?
Like Afghanistan and Syria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they come over legally in the correct way and not on boats across the channel.
What's the legal way? What's the legal way?
What's the legal way? Get your documents, come over the legal way.
How?
The legal system works.
What's the legal way?
That's why the NHS is in so much trouble.
Oh,
because
NHS!
You've got so many people coming into the country.
Fantastic.
That aren't paying into the system.
Right.
That are getting housing benefits because they know the system. Because England is a soft country and everybody knows that.
Right.
If you come in from another country, you'll get a house, you'll get benefits, you get free medical treatment. That's why the NHS is up the creek, and nobody will say it. Nobody will say it, but I will, because that's the truth of the matter.
To be fair, Jackie, I've heard loads of people say it, and they're all wrong.
How can you say they're all wrong?
Well, let's examine it, shall we? Let's just back up one bit. The legal routes that you can come here
from Afghanistan. Just talk me through what that involves.
I haven't a clue.
I know.
I haven't a clue.
Okay, and let's pretend that those
I'll be
routes...
honest, I haven't a clue.
Well, you don't have to tell us that. Well, not out loud. And now pretend now that these legal routes exist, even though we both know that they don't, okay? So you get here via one of these legal routes. Talk me through how you get a house and benefits.
Who knows? But
Well, you do,
that comes
Jackie.
here seems to know.
You do. So tell me how that works.
I haven't a clue how they get it, but they get it.
Right, so you haven't got a clue how they get here.
They moan about being in a centre down in Kent.
Well, hang on. Why are they in a centre down in Kent if they're all getting houses and unemployment benefits?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they in a centre down in Kent if they can all get a house?
These are the ones that are coming on the boats, aren't they?
No, you just told me they're the ones that get the houses.
They do.
But why are they in a centre in Kent then?
Because they're waiting for all the paperwork to be done, aren't they?
But you were in favour of the paperwork a minute ago. That would be the legal route.
Now. You know the situation, and you can't say it's right.
I do, and it is.
Do you believe people that are paying their taxes? That my parents who have worked all of their life and struggled and paid into the system, and we should let any Tom, Dick or Harry come into the country.
But we don't, you see.
But we do.
No,
how can you say that? We do.
Well,
you don't live in the real world.
How many times in this conversation have I said I haven't got a clue?
Well, how can I believe what you're saying?
No,
how do I know
it's
what
a
you're
simple
saying is
question.
correct?
It's not an opinion. It's just counting. How many times in this conversation have I said I don't have a...
Doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm being honest. That's why.
And how many
times?
And how many times? And how many times?
I know for a fact.
And how many times have you said it?
Yeah, I haven't got a clue about certain things. I don't know the system. I don't know the system.
Well,
I do.
But then how can you have
fact.
such a strong opinion about something you don't know anything about?
I do. I'm not saying I know about the.
So if I said to you, point at something that proves what you're telling me, what would you point at?
Point at something that proves what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Well, go on to a GP list of patients.
Yeah.
And see how long they've been in the country and what they get and where they live.
Right.
And
what would this prove?
Council accommodation, private rented.
Oh, Jackie.
You go in and have a look.
Okay.
And you're telling me, you cannot honestly tell me that this is not happening.
Well, I don't know what you're telling me is.
Tell me honestly.
So you're telling me that
what happens to the people?
Foreign people go to the doctors.
Boats? You tell me they're not getting sent straight back, are they?
Foreign people go to the doctors. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not saying that. You're changing everything I'm saying.
I don't understand what you think. I don't think either of us know what you're saying.
Proof. No,
yes.
I haven't got the proof.
No, I know you haven't got the proof. Why didn't you just say that? So you haven't. So you haven't got a clue, and you haven't got the proof.
No.
I know.
I don't need the proof.
But it doesn't matter because you can't say what you want in this country anymore without being called a racist.
You walk around any local town centre,
and you'll see some foreign people.
They're not going to be classed as being racist. You walk around any town centre.
How can you tell who's foreign?
Okay. You walk, and because you can hear the language. So it's not just black, Indian, Asian people.
No.
It's Polish, Ukrainian, it's Eastern European.
Yeah, and what's wrong with them again?
Every single language apart from English.
What's wrong with them again?
Don't tell me there's not people coming into this country.
I didn't.
Well, you're telling me, and they're not getting houses. You're telling me where they live.
You've got Suella Braverman's parents.
St Thomas's Hospital.
You've got Rishi Sunak's parents. You've got James Cleverly's mum. You've got Dominic Raab's dad.
Staff are working there.
What's wrong with foreigners?
Nothing's wrong with foreigners as long as they're coming into the country and paying their taxes.
But they are.
They're not. Not all of them.
Well, how do they do that then?
Not all of them. You get a job and you work.
So unemployed foreigners are the problem.
Yes.
Right. Well, we got there in the end.
Yes, unemployed.
Why are they worse? Why are they worse than unemployed British people?
No, unemployed British people are as bad.
Oh, so why are we talking about the foreigners?
Because they're letting people into the country.
Who is?
The government.
But we've just established you've got no idea how you can come into this country legally if you're a refugee.
Well, you tell me.
You can't.
You can.
How?
Because they're getting on boats and ending up at Dover.
Yes, that's the thing that we said wasn't legal. So what's the legal route?
I don't know the legal route, but what I'm saying is the legal route should be...
I said you can't, and you said you can.
You have to have a certain amount of money, don't you, to get into Australia.
What's the legal route?
I don't know the legal route.
There isn't one.
I don't know, and what member of the public does know the legal route in? Come on.
I do.
How do you know the legal route then?
Well, it's research.
Yeah, research.
Yeah. Do you want to know what the legal route is? If you want to come in,
you tell me the legal route.
There isn't one.
Okay. How comes that is then?
Pardon?
How's that then?
Because the Tories have closed them all down. The French would open up an asylum processing centre in Calais tomorrow, but the Tories don't want to do that because it would involve genuine asylum seekers having their applications accepted and coming to this country legally.
But you cannot have a genuine asylum seeker.
Yeah.
Would not be able to come to this country, would they?
Correct.
If you're a genuine asylum seeker, you go to the first safe country. So you wouldn't have this problem.
No, you don't, though, Jackie. That's simply not true. Also,
It is true. If you're running,
okay, so why didn't all the Ukrainians stay in Poland then?
Well, okay, fair enough. But what I'm saying
What do you mean, okay, fair enough? It's a question. Why didn't all the Ukrainians...
I haven't a clue.
Okay, well, I do, again,
here,
there we are again. I hope someone's keeping count. It's something else you don't have a clue about. Shall I tell you why they didn't all stay in Poland?
Go on then.
Because the idea that people fleeing war zones have to stay in the first safe country they reach is not true.
Well, this is what we're told.
Who by?
By the government.
No, you're not.
By whoever.
Oh, actually, on this occasion, you are told that by the government. But they're the same.
By the government, but how do we know what
But a minute ago, in fact, at the beginning of this call, you were telling me you can't trust anything the government says.
Well, you can't, can you?
No, you can't, Jackie.
You've just said it. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't.
Except the bits you want to believe.
No, it's not the bits you want to believe.
Like
it's what
the bits
you see
about safe countries.
When you see how the NHS is struggling and all these people are coming into the country.
What about foreign doctors?
50%. Building houses.
50% of NHS doctors now are foreign. 50% of NHS doctors are foreign born. How do we feel about them?
I'm not against foreign people. So you're changing what I'm saying.
I'm not.
I am not against foreign people working in England.
But if you're walking through the town centre and you see someone speaking Polish, how do you know whether they've got a job or not?
I don't know whether they've got a job or not.
So then how do you know that they're the problem that you can point at to prove to me all the things...
I'm not pointing at individuals, am I?
Yes, you were a minute ago. You said you can walk through any town.
If people come to this country, no matter where in the world they come from, if they're going to work and pay taxes and pay national insurance towards the NHS, then that's fine.
So you're in favour of uncontrolled immigration then?
Not uncontrolled, no.
Why not, if they've all got to get a job and pay taxes?
There'd be a lot less people coming into the country, wouldn't there, that are working. If you want the doctors, the nurses, and all the healthcare workers and all professional people coming into the country, that's not a problem. But the problem is the people that
It'd be a
aren't
lot harder to see a doctor if we got rid of half of them, wouldn't it?
I'm not... So why are you saying that? I haven't said a word about getting rid of foreign doctors. I said... It doesn't matter what country you're from, as long as you are paying.
Well, that's uncontrolled immigration.
No, it's not.
It is.
How can it be uncontrolled? If the paperwork's going through, how can it be uncontrolled? They're applying to come to the country to do a specific job.
Yes,
okay?
Exactly. So we won't put any limits on how many people can come here as long as they do a job.
Yes, but you're not going to have all the uncontrolled amount of people coming here that aren't going to work and are going to get benefits and housing.
And how do they get here again?
How does who get here?
All the people you were just talking about, the ones with all the houses.
Well, I don't know how they get here. Some come over on a boat illegally.
Right.
Some get over here legally, whether you just said
Will you do me a favour?
I don't care how they get over here. I don't know how they get over here, but at the end of the day,
again, it's an incredibly strong opinion. An incredibly strong opinion for a subject that, by your own admission, you know absolutely nothing about.
No, you're just trying to change what I'm saying.
I'm really not.
And I bet if you put a vote out on what people think out there, you'll get a 99% vote.
Well, let's find out.
Right, and loads of people want to say the same as me,
what do you think?
Got the guts to say it.
Well, we're here again, aren't we? You think you're some sort of brave crusader saying stuff that...
I don't think I'm a brave crusader. I'm just a normal...
Well, what does guts mean then?
Person.
What does guts mean, Jackie?
Why are you questioning the way I'm speaking?
You just said I haven't got the guts to do it, and I said that you think you're brave. So if you say I haven't got the guts to do something, guts is just another word for bravery, isn't it?
Look, okay, people are frightened to say anything.
I have to go now. Well, hang on.
Okay,
again,
then.
No, we're back there. What are people frightened of saying?
Oh, is it worth me finishing?
Yeah,
is
go
it
on.
worth me finishing?
Well, I'm 8 minutes late for the break. I could do this all day, but what is it that people are frightened of saying in the...
Speaking up the honest truth about what they feel.
But every time you've told me the honest truth, I've asked you one question and you've said I haven't got a clue.
That's about the way people get into the country, and
how can it be the honest truth?
Legal or illegal way of getting into Britain, but it's happening.
If I asked you to make a list of things you have got a clue about, what would you put at the top of the list?
Who knows?
Well, I hope you might.
I've got a clue about a lot of things.
Go on, then.
I've got a clue about a lot of things.
All right.
Well, there's no point in talking to you because you twist everything I say and then put words into my mouth.
What words have I put into your mouth?
I'll come and see you. Question.
Well, that's what I do. Of course, you say something.
I know absolutely nothing.
I know. Well, you keep saying I haven't got a clue.
Dear.
Love to the family, Jackie.
Right. Thank you.
Terry is in Croydon. Terry, what would you like to say?
Hi. Yeah, I just think this is a bit of British or English exceptionalism here going on. The rest of Europe, including the EU, and I think all the countries in Europe, all have a voter photo ID.
But they have ID cards, don't they? Compulsory ID cards.
Well, I think you can use other instruments as well.
Yeah, but everyone's... So this point here about a quarter of people still don't know that they have photo ID and about 1 million people haven't got it simply wouldn't apply in any of those countries.
No, not now, but we at least they do.
We're talking about now. You can't compare apples with pears, Terry.
No, I won't be doing that.
So you can't compare a country that doesn't have compulsory ID cards with a country that does. You can use an ID card in France to travel everywhere within the Schengen section, can't you? It's why the kids aren't coming here on their school trips anymore.
Why do Europe do that and we don't? That's the question.
ID cards.
No, but why do they do?
We've historically we've had an objection to ID cards because it makes people think of being asked for their papers in the final scenes of The Great Escape.
Yeah, well, but that's exceptionalism it's British exceptionalism.
No, but it's not, is it?
Okay. The next.
Here's the question that we're doing on the phone in today. Why do you think the government are bringing it in if there are next to no documented cases of the problem that it would ostensibly be designed to solve?
Because the fact that there's not next to, or there are documented cases, and the fact there's next to none doesn't mean.
Right, I can find one from the last 10 years.
Right. How many cases?
No, you can't answer a question with a question. Why do you think they're bringing it in?
I think that there's concern.
Yeah.
That there is a problem.
And what's the evidence for that problem?
The evidence that I've got is that when Ireland took up. It was in 2002, I think.
You're talking about another country again. What's the evidence here?
Northern Ireland.
What's the evidence here in Great Britain, where it's being introduced in England on May the 4th? What's the evidence?
Northern Ireland is part of the UK, and they brought in...
Yeah, we've already covered that. So where's the evidence of fraud? We have. I mentioned it 5 minutes ago, Terry. Where's the evidence of fraud in this country?
Well, in the cases that have been mentioned, there are cases
Go on, then.
of fraud. I've seen people do it. You've lived in a shared house. You know those cards come through the door.
Yeah.
And unless someone's in that queue...
Did you report the people that you saw doing it?
No.
Why not?
Did you see it?
I've never witnessed it. I don't think it happens. Why would anyone want to go and vote with a false name? What's the point?
Well, people do. People get politically...
But what did you do when you witnessed it, though? What did you do?
Well, I was quite young at the time.
How old were you?
I'd have been 30s.
Well, in your 30s.
Yeah.
And you witnessed electoral fraud.
Yeah.
And you did nothing about it.
Yeah, I didn't.
But you care enough about it to ring a national radio station and tell porky pies?
What do you mean a porky pie?
You didn't witness it at all, and if you did, then you're complicit in the crime.
Well, then the crime does exist. Do you admit that, then?
No, mate, I think you're lying.
I'm not lying.
Prove it.
That's outrageous.
Prove it.
An outrageous accusation.
Yeah, all right. Well, until you've got something a little bit better than Europe, Ireland, and I witnessed it in my 30s, you're going to sound a little bit ridiculous. So, final question: what's the evidence? What's the evidence for the problem, Terry? Apart from the thing that you saw, so you have found some evidence of voter fraud, but it goes to a different school.
What?
Tim's in Crewe. Tim, what would you like to say? But let's talk to Alpha first, who's in Ealing. Alpha, what would you like to say?
Good morning. It's very nice to speak to you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
I quite like what you said about the zombie, because quite literally Boris Johnson will always keep propping up.
He does.
In my eyes, as a Conservative, he will never be honest, he will never be honourable, and I hope that it doesn't completely paint all Conservatives as bad, because there are opponents to him and his supporters, like myself, who genuinely dislike their character, and they needlessly make it harder for us to try and progress in terms of our our agenda and the manifesto from 2019 and future manifestos as well. And on progression as well, it's actually regressive because we can't focus on rebuilding the country since Boris Johnson's behaviour is entitled and where he thinks his messages can't be under investigation.
No, I know, but you can't rebuild the country until you've admitted that Brexit is a disaster.
Well, I'd say Brexit, of course, has its failures, and even Nigel Farage says Brexit has its failures.
Have a listen to this, because you know the Australian trade deal kicked in this week.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
This is Australian breakfast television yesterday.
Free trade agreement with the UK. Some British products will become cheaper. Exciting news. I just wonder, what does Britain actually have to offer us? I mean, there's beautiful MGs. If we can imagine the top down, Matty, riding. Here we are. This is you riding to the Callide Power Station earlier this morning with the top down. Your hair blowing freely in the wind. Oh, hang on. The MG's owned by a Chinese company.
Yeah, that's right.
So
true.
What else do they have? There's black pudding, Cumberland sausages. That's about it, isn't it?
Carlos, there's like Spice Girls CDs, a nice cup of English breakfast tea. Don't be so hard on the Brits.
All right, name one good export from the UK, Matty.
It's hard, isn't it? I suppose. The peas pies, I don't know. Yeah, it's very hard. But this is about what we sell to them, Carl. It's a good thing for us. Good thing for us because we get to sell more beef, and that's great for everybody in Australia.
All right.
Anyway, back to the good Tories, Alpha.
Yes, well, I do think, me personally as well, I wasn't so keen on Brexit. Of course, I think that the EU has its issues with democracy.
You voted for it, though.
I didn't vote for it, actually. I
too young.
Against it. Too young, exactly. Okay. Too young. But I was...
But every single member of the current Conservative Party is telling us that Brexit was a great idea and that it's going brilliantly. So who are the ones we should be listening to instead?
Well, in theory, I think in terms of sovereignty and in terms of democracy, Brexit does seem to be credible, but then again, it's very good for our economy, and it probably could have helped us get out of the hangover of the pandemic, let's say.
That was just words. I know that wasn't what you were expecting to talk about when you rang in, but you did say that there are lots of good Conservatives out there and we shouldn't be distracted by Boris Johnson, so I asked you where they are.
Well, in the party, I'd say obviously the backbenchers who rebelled against him. And
which ones?
One could say the One Nation Caucus.
Well, they all got... 39 of them got expelled in 2019. So which ones are we talking about?
People like Bir Matalami, for example, people who were obviously opponents to Johnson and his sort of attitude.
Is he? Yeah, okay. I haven't got the facts at my fingertips. Are we sure that they're not all leaving at the next election?
What, in terms of not running?
Yeah.
For the Conservative, probably they won't, because I mean it's not electorally smart, thanks to a lot of problems that have happened in the past few years. Nonetheless, I completely agree with you. He's hit his self-destruct button, and he's clearly entitled to the point where he thinks that he doesn't even have to be held accountable.
Why is Rishi Sunak trying to keep all the evidence away from the inquiry?
God knows, but surely he's got something to do with it if that's the case. And it's very shameful. It is very shameful because genuinely we should be focusing on moving on. But because of people like these people and their attitudes, it's really hard. And it makes being a Conservative harder for me as well.
So did you vote in 2019? Were you old enough to vote then?
No, I wasn't old enough. Uh-huh.
Okay. I mean... But you would have voted Tory if you could have done in 2019.
Probably. I quite like the idea of levelling up. I was going to move to the north as well. I quite liked a lot of things in the manifesto. I thought it's a new type of...
What did levelling up mean, do you think? And has it happened?
Levelling up is essentially, for me, the investment into places in the north, and I can see that clearly they are continuing with it, with trying to build financial sectors in Liverpool and Manchester, as announced by Hunt in his March statement, in his March budget. But
so you think that levelling up meant opening financial sectors in northern cities?
And also investment in northern sectors as well, because of course the more we invest in different parts of the country, the more strong our economy will be.
You sound like you're auditioning to be a Conservative MP rather than being a caller to a radio show that feasts upon evidence and facts every day. So what sort of investment in what you call northern sectors are we talking about here? Because I think by all accounts, including your parties, it hasn't happened.
So in terms of investment in the north, if if we look at the financial sector, for example...
but we've just said we're not going to look at the financial sector because the red wall voters who were persuaded by Boris Johnson in 2019 are not disaffected city workers looking for a move to the northwest, are they?
Oh, but of course it's an excellent idea to probably prop up their economies.
My patience is wearing a little thin. It does sound, I don't want to be rude, it does sound almost as if you're reading from a laminated sheet. In terms of big wins and big deliveries, should we talk about the 40 hospitals? That was in the manifesto, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How's that working out for you?
Not very well, but then again we had COVID, so surely we can see that there is obviously things like COVID, which
how would COVID render hospitals that we were promised never to be built now?
Because the financing for the hospitals would now all have to be diverted to welfare, such as furlough, in order to stop mass unemployment.
But that's simply not true, is it? No one's even arguing that they've run out of money to build the hospitals. It was a lie when it started. It was a lie when it started. I mean, we sat here and said they're claiming that a refurbishment is a new hospital. Listen, you fascinate me, and I am conscious of your youth, so I don't want to either be patronising or rude. But if without using words like in terms of and sector and you know what I would call politico speak, what is the sort of credo? What is the belief you hold that makes you think there is a Conservative Party, albeit one that doesn't really contain any of the prominent parliamentarians at the moment? There is a Conservative Party to which you feel drawn. What is it they represent?
Social conservatism, firstly.
But again, that's just jargon, isn't it? What do you mean by that?
So conserving family values, conserving...
What does family values mean? Because you're talking about a party that put Boris Johnson in charge just a few years ago.
Yeah, but then again, Boris Johnson has a family of his own, so...
He has several.
Well, yes. Yeah,
and children born out of wed. Where does that fit into family values?
Then again, though, like I said, there aren't many good representations of conservatism.
No, but that's why I'm asking for some. I'm asking for what it is you believe in, because the Conservative Party in its current form is the party of Boris Johnson, a sexually incontinent adulterer. It's not the party of family values. So what is?
What other parties are there?
No. What are the family values to which you refer? Where is the evidence that this party is the? What do you mean by family values?
Family values to me is the belief in the nuclear family, first of all.
Oh boy! So you don't. So we're opposed to equal marriage now, are we?
No, if you can do what you want, but of course this is my view.
Yeah, but that's why I'm asking you. That is your view, is it? That equal marriage is not equal?
What do you mean by equal marriage?
Well, you know what the word equal means. You think a marriage between two people of the same sex is not nuclear?
Of course not. Quite literally, it's not. But then
okay.
Again,
no, I mean, it took me a while, but I was intrigued by where you were coming from, and now we know. So, family values means that Boris Johnson is okay, but two faithful, loving gay men raising children are not.
You can do what you like as a couple. I'm not going to intervene in it, but I have my
we got there in the end. It always takes a while sometimes, which is, of course, why you deployed all that ludicrous jargon at the outset in order to avoid getting to the heart of it. Did you go to that conference last week where the comments about the Holocaust involving the Germans mucking up were made? Were you there?
No, I wasn't, no.
Why not?
That's disgusting. That's a disgusting comment.
But they were talking about family values all the time. And the nuclear family. Didn't Danny Kruger stand up and say exactly what you've just said?
What did he say?
He talked about the nuclear family and to the denigration of equal marriage.
Are you alluding that the idea of the
not alluding anything, mate. I'm pointing out that at the conference you've just described as disgusting, people were saying exactly what you've just said on national radio.
What? When you told me that they're speaking about Nazis and so on?
No, when they were talking about the nuclear family. That was two different people, two different speakers at the same conference. That's the only reason why I wondered whether you'd been there, because I did find myself wondering who the hell would applaud that sort of bigotry, but I guess now we know. Aidan's in Camden. Aidan, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy with what you've been saying today and with the RSPB's position, but I'm afraid I think it does demean such an important institution with so much reputation and expertise to be expressing itself in this way. I think calling someone a liar is quite a serious accusation, and it's an accusation that someone is not only wrong or...
No, they said they wouldn't weaken environmental protections, and they have.
Okay, But what I was going to go on to say is that it's further than that. It's an accusation that the person is actually acting in bad faith. And look, the RSPB has a huge amount of knowledge. Can you just let me finish?
No, I won't let you finish, because I won't be able to concentrate on what you say next if we don't clarify what you said before first.
Okay, fair enough.
So they said they wouldn't weaken environmental protections, and they have. So where's the confusion for you there?
So I think if you were to accuse someone of being a liar and acting in bad faith, what you would be saying is that back in 2017, when Michael Gove said that...
That's a different lie. Sorry, this is why it's important that I do interrupt sometimes, so that I can clarify for you what I've said. So that was a different lie. That's just proof that Michael Gove has a history of lying on this particular subject. But on the promise not to weaken environmental protections, that's this year. I mean, that's the last manifesto. That's constant.
Okay, no, I understand, but I think...
And now they've weakened... and now they have weakened environmental protections. So they said they weren't going to do something, and then they did it. What word would you prefer we used to describe the thing they said that wasn't true?
I think the important part of what I was going to say was that if the RSPB is going to make that criticism, and by the way, with their expertise and with their reputation, I don't think it's wrong for them to do that.
Yes.
I think they should make that in a measured, evidence-based way, not on Twitter using this kind of sort of mudslinging language.
Okay, no, I understand that. I mean, I understand that perfectly. That's your... What's the word? Well, that's your sensibilities, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's incredibly important.
No, I think everybody's sensibilities are important, but it's not based on anything other than your claim today that you don't like that sort of behaviour on social media.
It's not just that. I mean, I think you talk a lot about Boris Johnson and the degradation of standards in public life.
Yes.
It's undoubtedly broad. And I'm afraid I think if we hold ourselves to those new standards rather than the standards that we should be holding ourselves to, then we've really, really lost an awful lot in public life. And I think... Fair enough, all of the things that you've mentioned...
No, you can't conflate lying with calling someone a liar.
Lying's much worse, but I still think calling...
So what would you call it? Under your reading of more suitable or appropriate behaviour, what would you like to see liars called instead of liars?
I would suggest that the way this should be framed is a forensic examination of what the government has said and what they've done and how inconsistent it is. I think that should come
and if the conclusion as a consequence of that forensic examination is that they have lied, what word would you prefer?
I still don't think in that circumstance...
No, I know, that's what I'm acknowledging. I'm asking what word you would prefer. So here is a liar, and you don't like the word liar, and you don't think the RSPB should be using the word liar. What word would you prefer them to use to describe that liar over there?
Could you give me an example of the kind of finding that you would want them to have found? So, for example,
here is a politician who said we definitely won't reduce environmental protections, and then they did. There's an example.
Okay, fair enough.
So here's that liar right in front of you, the one who lied about not reducing environmental protections, and we're not going to call him a liar because something, RSPB something. What are we going to call him instead?
Fine. So the way I would frame that is that what the government has done is not consistent with what they said they would do, and we believe they are...
You know there's a character limit on Twitter.
Well, you'd have to be creative and use it.
Go on then. So what single word would you use to replace the word liar?
It doesn't have to be a single word. I think.
All right, you can have 5.
We don't prefer single words.
You can have 5.
No, I think it needs to be a sentence or a set of sentences that simply explain why they believe that they were acting in bad faith and their reasons for doing so. I think that's actually so important that we don't...
That's not really making sense. That's not... It's not mudslinging and name-calling. It's an accurate description, and that's why I'm pushing you on what word you would use. What word would you... It's not a pejorative. It's an accurate description. It would be a pejorative if it wasn't true, but it is. No one's disputing that. So here is the liar. What are we going to call the liar who has lied if we're not going to call them a liar after they lie?
I don't think it's necessary to attach a label to someone. I think the facts speak themselves.
Okay, there we go. But the facts are?
Well, the facts are that the government has quite consistently and persistently said they would not weaken environmental protections after Britain left the European Union. And in this instance, there is a weakening of environmental protections.
So they've lied.
I think that stands for themselves. Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
Because a lie implies acting in bad faith. And you haven't necessarily proved that.
Well, a lie doesn't necessarily imply acting in bad faith. A lie implies lying.
No, a lie is bad faith.
But he's a liar.
No, I mean, a lie is implicitly impugning the motive of a person, not the inconsistency in their statement, James.
No, it's both. And I am imputing the motive of the person. He is a liar. He said he wouldn't do something, and then he did. Give me the positive reading of that, the positive analysis of that, the analysis of that casts Michael Gove in a good light.
Well, I think that's a different question.
I know it is. That's why I asked it.
An example might be if you're not to accuse someone in bad faith, is he said something back in 2017. Circumstances had changed. He really reevaluated the subject and came to a different conclusion.
But they've been pledging all along that they weren't going to reduce environmental protections, and they have reduced Just forgive me for asking this question, but what's your what's the word I want? What made you pick up the phone today? What is it you object to here? What?
It's about standards in public life, I think.
Okay, and that's incredible. So people listening to this think that your interest in standards in public life is focusing upon the RSPB using the word liar more than on Michael Gove lying.
Not necessarily.
No, it is. You can't keep saying not necessarily. That's what you've rung in to do. You've rung in to object to the RSPB's behaviour in describing a liar as a liar and claiming that your motivation is a concern for standards in public life. You're defending a liar. How about a person who lies? A person who lies. Is that better?
Stop letting me speak, James.
Well, you've spoken quite a lot.
Yeah, but not in the last few minutes. You've asked people to phone in to say, what do you think of the RSPB's behaviour, not what do you think of Michael Gove's behaviour.
Well, what do you think of Michael Gove's behaviour?
What do I think of Michael Gove's behaviour on this? I think it's clearly inconsistent. I think they've not honoured their promises. Whether or not they've been acting in bad faith in respect of this, I'm going to reserve judgment. Because this ultimately is
Can you think of a word to describe someone who's broken a promise?
Someone who's... Again, it would depend on whether I thought they'd done bad faith or not.
Rhymes with fire.
Sorry?
It rhymes with fire.
I mean, you're just determined to try to lead the witness to the point at which they say someone is a liar.
I'm not, mate. This isn't about the witness. This is about the jury. And they will have arrived at their own conclusions by now, Aidan. Thank you. Michelle is in Barnet. Michelle, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. It's my first time calling in, and I just want to say I do appreciate that while sometimes I'm screaming at my radio listening to you, I can hear that you're really approaching the story with, compassion, and I appreciate that.
I hope so, Michelle. Thank you.
So I just want to say it's been absolutely exhausting being a Jewish person in the UK this week. And we're reeling from the pain of what's happened. I've tried not to actually look at the imagery because I don't want it to, be forever a mark on my soul. But, it's hard, really hard when you're seeing the visceral images of the depths of what people can actually go to. But I wanted to actually talk about, what's interesting is I've also been helping in activations to try and help get humanitarian aid into the country because as a community, Jewish people are very good at doing. We're not so good necessarily at speaking. Well, there's two thoughts of opinion on that, but we like to just do, and that's how we kind of help. And you'll probably find that more people are actually doing things and calling in to the radio. But, I mean, we've had a flurry and it's been horrendous from an anti-Semitism worry this week.
Yes.
And we are so lucky to be having Rishi Sunak and so many level-headed people in government because all I can say is that had Corbyn been in government, we would definitely have been leaving this country. And I'm someone who's British-born. I can't explain that to you as a British person, how that feels. But what I wanted to say, and I don't want to get cut off, but...
now you've worried me. Carry on.
No, because what I wanted to say is that... why the anti-Semitism has been so difficult is because obviously, I hear you talking about does Israel operate to, do they need to operate to moral rules? Of course they do. They are the Israeli Defense Force. And as Jewish people and Judaism, you are governed to act in a certain way. Nothing is more important than life. And the way that I'm looking on Facebook of that image of that poor girl who's in her underwear, her G-string and her bra.
Yes, careful, because trigger warnings are important. Right, there's a reason why you don't look at the pictures that you've just described in grim terms. So I'm also reading about the 6-year-old child in
in America murdered for being Palestinian.
But let me just talk about just before. Obviously,
I'm going to have to hurry you now, Michelle.
Right. So, but what I want to say is the conflating of how you can talk about the Israeli army that's going in to get its hostages. Imagine in the UK,
well, the coverage in Israel. The coverage in Israel has been incredibly critical about the lack of concern being expressed for the hostages.
Well, that's it, because this is like now, as you said, how many
by the Israeli government.
But the problem is because
nobody thinks that cutting off electricity and water and telling 1.1 million people to relocate is about rescuing hostages, Michelle.
Well, this is an active hostage situation.
Yes, but no one thinks this is the whole point in a way, isn't it? You can't with a straight face argue that these are measures being undertaken to rescue hostages.
I totally disagree. I disagree, James. Because
right. So talk me through how it works then.
But as a British citizen, imagine if we had people, babies, children, grandparents, people,
Yes, I can imagine that. But talk me through how these tactics work.
Well, they have to go in on a ground level to try and find where people are and rescue them. That's what's happening. That's why they.
Why are they moving 1.1? Why are they moving 1.1 million people to the south? Who?
They want to get the people. We know that Hamas uses people.
But wouldn't you take the hostages with you?
All I think about is, what can you imagine how amazing it would be if the Jewish people had given the benefit of getting out the way? No, because Hamas doesn't behave like Israel.
But you're not supposed to be conflating. You're not supposed to be.
That's my exact point. Right. I'm just demonstrating how we don't behave like those animals.
Yes, that's fine. But how does this tactic work? How does cutting off electricity and water for 1 million people?
Well, because you know that Hamas is using the people as human shields, and they're trying to get the enemy out.
So what happens? They all stay.
In Afghanistan,
you can keep talking, but here's the problem, and it's not really the question that I'm asking, but I understand that's a bit ambitious and optimistic of me, given the depth of emotion that everybody is feeling. But I don't understand. I am a Hamas terrorist. I am holding an Israeli hostage. I become more likely to peacefully hand that hostage back as a consequence of what Israel is going to undertake in the next few days. I just don't understand how you end up at that conclusion. I understand why you desperately want it to be true, but it sounds absurd.
But you say that, but I'm no hostage negotiator expert. But
no, but you're telling me that you're certain
that when your enemy has your people, you're trying to make it an uncomfortable climate to try and get the people out. But that's what. And
how does that happen though? Because the hostages are on the receiving end of the bombardments and the collective punishments as well.
I'm not privy to the operational detail, but what I can say
you don't have to be privy to the operational detail. You have to justify your own position that this is going to work, because I don't think it's got anything to do with hostages. I think this is revenge, and I understand that. Retaliation is perhaps a better word. We know that. Well, of course it is, and we know that.
That's a luxury that you can say, because you haven't got 150 people who are trapped in a
And I haven't got 1,300 people dead either, or whatever the Palestinian figure is now. So this isn't conflation.
Forget about those hostages. No, should there be no attempt to rescue them then?
Well, I don't think there is any attempt to rescue them.
Family member.
I don't think there is any attempt to rescue them. That's what the bulk of coverage in Israel has said all week. That they've been treated with borderline contempt.
Because it hasn't been immediate rescue.
No, because the tactics that are being undertaken cannot possibly be cast as hostage rescuing tactics, and I think you must know that, because you've gone from saying you're certain that it will to saying, well, I don't know any of the operational details and I don't understand any.
I don't. But
so just have a crack then, please. Have one go at explaining to me how. You can do all the counterfactuals. You can do all the counterfactuals you want. So how does it help? How does it work? That's all I want to know.
They're trying to locate and take out Hamas, which they've said that they want to do.
But Hamas are with the hostages.
Right. So actually, what you're asking
me... So how do you take out... Here's a terrorist in a room with a hostage.
How do you... So you tell me.
No, I don't need to tell you. I've told you what I think.
Say to Hamas, please, can you kindly return the hostages, other than actually forcibly rescuing them?
So how does it work, Michelle? How does it work? Here's a room. There are 2 terrorists and 1 hostage in the room. Tell me how these tactics rescue the hostage.
Well, they'll take out the terrorists. That's what
they're in the same room.
They're having a ground invasion. I don't know why you're asking this question like it's the first time that hostage rescue has ever happened.
Because I don't think this is hostage rescue, and I don't think you do either.
Right. No, to be honest, I do think this is hostage rescue.
Well, then you must tell me how it works.
Exactly the same.
You must tell me how it works.
I've just explained. But what I'm understanding is you wouldn't. You think it's okay just to leave these people?
I think anything's okay. I don't have any. That's not fair at all. I haven't said anything.
It is, because then.
No, I'm just asking you because your justification for what is going to happen is that it's a hostage rescue attempt, and I just want one sentence that would allow me to think, oh yes, she's got a point. This looks like a hostage rescue attempt.
When Israel disengaged from Gaza,
please answer my question specific to the.
Answer my question.
I don't have to answer your question because I'm not endorsing any course of action. I'm comparing it to a natural disaster or a tsunami. You're saying that this carnage that's about to be unleashed is justified by the fact that it's a hostage rescue action. I'm saying I can't really see any evidence at all for that rationale, and I'm just asking you to provide a little bit.
Well, it's definitely not the same as a tsunami because that has been man-made entirely. So that's not a fair point of comparison.
Well, I know, but it's the Israeli Defense Force that is on the offensive now, not the Hamas terrorists. So I'm using
I don't know if they're going to. I don't think that's a very fair fight when they're being backed and armed by.
No, I know you don't.
I know you don't.
But I'm not listening. I've given you the whole of this section of the programme. Can we agree that you haven't got a single scintilla of support for the idea that this is a good way of rescuing hostages?
I don't know what the other option is apart from just.
That's very honest of you. That's very honest of you. But even more honest would be to say the truth, which we both know to be that you haven't got a single scintilla of support for the idea that this is a good way of rescuing hostages. And much of the coverage, which doesn't mean it's correct, but there's certainly a majority of the coverage, including the families of an awful lot of the hostages, which you must have read, Michelle. You must have seen this. They do not believe that this is a hostage rescue attempt. And Frank, I don't think anybody does, really. Calvin's in Westminster. Calvin, what would you like to say?
Yeah, hello there, James. Good morning.
Hello, mate.
I was urged to phone in this morning, one, because you were going on about the Millennium Dome.
Yes.
I was working on the Jubilee Line extension at the time, when the Millennium Dome was obviously being built, and Tony Blair and the Queen and everyone went up there on New Year's Eve, and there was a big fanfare, and everyone had to forget about the disaster that was. And even the Jubilee Line extension was a disaster.
Yeah.
But the main reason why I'm ringing in is because of the PPP, the Public-Private Partnership.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, of course.
Right, that cost the British taxpayer £1.7 billion when it collapsed. You had a wonderful lady on some while ago called Elaine Chubb.
I'm going to have to steer you back to the concept of a self-inflicted political injury. So PPP was brought in by John Major's government in 92, and that had exploded under Labour starting from 97, after which they won 2 more general elections. So just talk me through how it gets filed under self-inflicted injury on a political personality or party.
Right, Ken Livingstone obviously tried to fight that. He fought a court case that cost the taxpayer, again, £10 million against Gordon Brown.
Yeah, but remember they won 2 more elections after it came in. So
that's my point, because the British public didn't bat an eyelid.
So it wasn't really a self-inflicted injury then, was it?
Well, it should have been.
Yeah, I know it should have. I mean, it should have been, but it isn't. So it doesn't really.
One of your callers quite rightly. I agree with him. To be perfectly honest with you, some people in this country are stupid, or they're just not educated enough on the matters of government and what actually happens, because that was a disaster. Look at the transport system in this country. Even as I say, I worked on the Jubilee Line extension. That overran, and it overcost to about 300 million, I believe.
Yeah, we could pick, HS2 as well. We can pick loads of things that cost a lot of money. That's why I don't think you've quite grasped the rules of the game this morning, Calvin. So the 1947 Tanganyika groundnut scheme, something that was Just ridiculous in every imaginable way. I can explain why PPP happened. It takes public expenditure off the books. It encourages private sectors to invest. Inevitably, when government gets into bed with the private sector, they ended up getting rinsed. But it's easy to understand how it happened, and I can understand both the ideological and economic basis for it and the reasons for its failure. Can you explain to me how Rishi Sunak has ended up in such an almighty mess over Rwanda? Because that's kind of the phone-in that the rest of us are having today.
Because his party's split up into different segments like the rest of this country.
Yeah, that doesn't really work as an answer, though, does it? Because I mean, that bit would still be true even if he hadn't done it. So how has he ended up in such a deep hole on this particular policy?
Because they haven't got a clue of what they're doing.
Well, I mean, you can have that, but but they obviously do, because he keeps he keeps saying it's good, or he's going to do this, or he's going to ban that, or block this, or do the other, and they like it and they don't, and right. He said right about 400 times yesterday. So, I mean, listen, I'll put PPP on the list, but for the reasons that I've explained, it doesn't really fit the parameters of this morning's challenge. In the way that, for example, Sue is, I think, a proper contender, but going to take some beating for the Tanganyika groundnut scheme, which cost us the equivalent of £1 billion and did precisely nothing, and also drips with a sort of post-colonial arrogance in the way that perhaps the Rwanda scheme does as well. But thank you, Calvin. Jack's in Bedford. Jack, what would you like to say?
I think my point I want to make is the difference between Harry and Prince Andrew is, I think, from how I understand it, Harry chose to leave, take his wife and family to California, like you said earlier, to protect her and to protect them and take them away. So I don't think that he's not being invited or not being included. I think he's chosen to take himself away. And then on the Prince Andrew side, I think I personally don't think he's done anything wrong. So he's not taking himself away, and he's trying to push himself back in because what he thinks he has or hasn't done is very minor. So I don't think that calling him the friend of a paedophile and condemning him for being friends with a paedophile, I think is unfair, because there are so many people that have friends that have done awful things.
No, but he stayed mates afterwards, after he'd come out of jail.
What I was saying to the lady before I spoke to you is, you don't know what conversations are being had or have been had behind closed doors. You don't know what Prince Andrew said to Jeffrey Epstein behind closed doors. You don't know if they were being best friends or whether they actually went there and said, you know what, this is awful, I can't believe you've done this, and all the rest of it.
No, you're right.
You're
right. No, you got me bang to rights, Jack. It's perfectly possible he flew all the way to New York after his mate had got out of jail to say, gosh, I can't believe what a wrong 'un you are.
No, but
you mean all those teenage girls that were hanging around at your private island? You mean that some of them were there and they didn't want to? I had absolutely no idea, Jeffrey. Look at the embarrassment you've caused me. Shame on you and your international sex trafficking paedophile ways. You're right, Jack. It could easily have been that conversation he flew out to have.
But I think you don't know that.
I'm agreeing with you, mate. He could have flown all the way to New York to say, all those girls that were knocking around, who I asked you whether they were underage, and you assured me that they weren't, and they were all there entirely of their own volition. God, the embarrassment, you disgusting man. Shame on you for offering me massages with them and taking my photograph with my arms around. Shame on you, Jeffrey Epstein, for your disgusting behaviour. You're right, mate.
I think what we understand about Jeffrey Epstein is he was a master groomer, manipulator, and horrible person.
You don't know that. You don't know what conversations he had in private. He might have been a lovely guy. No, sorry, I'm just deploying your own logic. I'm just deploying your own logic here, Jack.
Just to go back on what you just said then, we know that's not true because we know the crimes he was convicted of and the things that we know he did.
How do we know that? How do we know that?
Because we know.
How?
We know that is fact.
Yeah, because he went to court. And faced the accusations. But so now, off the top of your head, who didn't?
Andrew never did.
Exactly. How did he avoid it?
Well, by doing what everyone else would have done in that situation.
So you, innocent of sexual assault allegations, would pay off the accuser rather than have your day in court and prove your innocence?
If I...
It's a simple question, Jack.
I wouldn't, because I don't have that kind of money.
It's all right. She's going to take 50 quid, mate. Are you going to pay her off, or are you going to have your day in court?
If she's going to take 50 quid for a sexual assault, then I would imagine that there's something deeper going on there than... If you're so traumatised and upset and you're willing to be paid off and not actually go through the process to get the person that you're accusing of doing something awful... £12 million.
You realise that you are essentially acting here as a an apologist for someone accused of sexual assault?
No.
No, you are. That's not an opinion. That's just counting. Here's the man accused of sexual assault, and here's Jack in Bedford defending him.
I'm not defending him.
Totally are.
Per se, because
you totally are.
I just think that you can't. I think you have to.
Go on.
The court of public opinion is can be. I don't know what the right word to use is, but
you're telling me.
I don't know how to word it in a way. Judging someone.
Do you know why you can't word it?
Why is that?
Because your thoughts don't make sense.
Okay.
And your thought is, Prince Harry brought this on himself by sticking up for himself and his wife, whereas Prince Andrew is an innocent victim of circumstances conspiring against him, and that's why you can't say it in words, because if you did, you'd realise how ridiculous you are.
No, but I don't think what is being done to Harry is fair to him.
No, but he brought it on himself.
No, I don't think he brought it on. I don't.
But that's literally what you said when you rang in. That was your first point.
No. Yeah, he did
chose to leave the royal family.
Yeah, he did choose to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that was a bad thing to do. I think he's done that for, like you said earlier, to protect him and his family and his wife.
As opposed to paying £12 million to keep yourself out of the dock where you're accused of multiple sexual assaults. And yet here you are siding with the latter against the former.
I don't think that is necessarily the right thing. I don't think necessarily Prince Andrew should have done. I think he should have just stood up and defended himself.
Well, that's changed in the last 30 seconds. That's changed in the last 30. You said literally 2 minutes ago he did what everybody else would have done in that situation. Scale of 1 to 10, how do you think this call's gone for you?
Probably not very well.
Well, what?
Quite high up on, well, probably 10 if 10's bad.
Pretty close to 10. I'll give you 9.5, Jack, because, it's not lunchtime yet, and you might have,
I want to make it very
low blood
clear
sugar
that
levels. No, mate, you've had your fun.
No, just in my own defence. I'm just trying to put forward for my own defence that I'm just trying to make the point of someone else.
Okay.
I'm not saying that necessarily. This is 100% my opinion. But
good. Well, next time, don't ring in with anybody else's opinion but your own. All right. Otherwise, people might get confused.
Oh.
Have a great day.
That's fine. Okay. Goodbye.
Nick's in Paddington. Nick, what do you reckon?
Happy New Year, James.
Oh, don't you start. Honestly, for heaven's sake, that's every caller now. Every caller's going to say it between now and 1 o'clock.
I didn't ask you how you are because I don't care, because that's what this is all about.
That's the spirit.
James O'Brien. I'll tell you what why they think this is dystopian.
Go on.
Because you absolutely nailed it, and I do like a little insight off you on a Monday morning. You nailed it, because it's, as you said, those Asian people, they wear masks because they care about other people. They've got a sense of community. And we've got a government that doesn't care about community. Didn't Margaret Thatcher?
No, hang on. No, the guy who said wear masks is the Secretary of State for Transport. So you can criticise Desmond Swayne, but you can't say the government in this context, because it's the government who have said wear a mask.
Unless you've got a sort of a coalition, I think you'll find that the government is conservative, who are playing the Margaret Thatcher.
No, but Desmond Swayne, don't go down this route, because Desmond Swayne isn't in government, is he? So the person in government said wear a mask, and the person we're talking about said don't wear a mask. It's a dystopian conspiracy. So you can't these things are important, Nick. Facts matter.
I need a book about how to be wrong, then, don't I?
How not to be wrong, mate.
James, I phoned you up this time last year on my way to John O'Groats. I was on my way to launch an appeal to raise £1 million. I spoke to you at the end of the year from Western-super-Mare, and frankly, it was all about caring.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I'd rather talk about maths, not masks.
Okay. John's in Croydon. John, what would you like to say? Clive's in Tottenham. Clive, what would you like to say?
Hi. I was concurring with your introduction, with what you were saying about being in church. It causes you to be conscious of certain things, of how you live in your life, and that is very true, because I'm a practicing Christian myself. Now, James, you're an intelligent man, and the thing is, you know how to use words as well. And the thing is, this constant thing about homophobic and that type of thing, that doesn't come from true Christians. It does not. Because if we believe God is love. God loves all mankind, right? It's not about being holier than thou, looking down upon anyone else. We're all sinners. Now, the problem is, if we believe that the Bible is God's inspired word to mankind, it gives a proper mandate for life, for giving, for whatever it is, for love, and for living a good Christian life, if we follow it by God's help. Now, the thing is, We've taken segments out of the Bible and we're saying it means this and it means that, and we're taking things out of context. God has given the mandate, the outline for a biblical marriage, and that is for man and woman. If there are two men and they say that they love God, that's fine. They can do what they want, but they should not come and tell and dictate to Christians how they should live their life. And even,
but they are Christians.
No, what do I'm saying?
But you're dictating to those Christians how they should live their life.
No.
Yeah, you are.
The Bible is the authority and the rules.
God is the authority and the rules.
And how does he communicate to us then?
Well, he sent Jesus, who told us to ignore the Old Testament.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
Oh, please, James. Where did you show me where he says to ignore the Old Testament? If you can prove that to me, then I'll say yes.
I'm going to Google it so that you don't think that I'm being unfair. All right?
Absolutely.
So
now the thing is, can I just say, James, as well?
Well, hang on. I thought this was important.
It absolutely is. You come back on that. You do your little research and come back on that.
Okay.
But I'm saying this homophobic attitude that people like you keep saying there's a homophobic towards. No, not at all. Any true Christian will love all of mankind, and it's all about salvation. Listen, if you had a child that had looked at that nice blue flame in the kitchen and he wanted to touch it, what would you do? Would you let the child...
you're talking nonsense now. I mean that politely. So what is the blue flame? What's the blue flame? Is that... No, hang on. What do you compare... You can't just keep talking. I've been more quiet than I ever am. What are you comparing the flame to?
To hurting somebody being hurt, and you as a parent trying to guard and protect that child from being hurt, from hurting himself. Why?
But what are they going to get hurt by in the context of their love lives? I don't understand.
No. It's about salvation, James.
Yeah, but what are they going to get hurt? But let's just focus on one word at a time, all right? So you say hurt, I say what does that mean? And you say salvation. That doesn't help anybody. So what are they going to get hurt by? I understand how if I put my hand in a fire, my hand will get hurt. How are people having... blessings in church, gay people having blessings in church, how are they going to get hurt?
Because if the church condones what they're doing, they're not sticking to the mandate.
But the church does condone it.
Yes. No. What? Do you not understand what I'm saying?
No, I haven't got a clue. I think that makes two of us. So the church does condone. The Archbishop of Canterbury and the Synod have just said that it's fine.
Right. Okay. So what I'm saying is.
So the church does condone it?
No. He's not going with a biblical mandate, though, James.
But he's the Archbishop of Canterbury.
He is not the authority of God.
But he is. In the Anglican community, he's the head honcho. Well, I suppose technically it's King Charles.
He thinks he is, but he's not, because he's perverting the Scriptures.
So you know better than he does?
No, I don't know. The Scriptures knows.
Which Scriptures?
This is what it is. The Bible.
Which bit?
From Genesis to Revelation, all is truth. God's revelation to mankind.
But that never says anything about homosexuality.
Are you being real? In the book of Leviticus, in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about men laying with men.
But Leviticus also talks about burning a bull on the altar as a sacrifice because the odour would please the Lord.
Oh.
And it says you can sell your daughter into slavery, doesn't it, in Exodus?
Okay, then. So what was the first mandate that God gave to mankind? What was the first thing he said?
I'm afraid I'm going to pull you back to Leviticus and Exodus, mate, because you just cited them. Do you still think it's okay to sell your daughter into slavery?
No, not at all.
Well, why are you picking and choosing then?
No. It's about what God has set in order.
That's Exodus 21:7, mate. You know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
It is okay to sell your daughter into slavery. What would be a fair price, do you think, in this day and age?
No. James, what we've got to understand, I said, you've got to get things in its context.
I am. The context is the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus, which you just cited as your justification for what I describe as homophobia. So I'm just wondering why you pick that bit and yet you ignore the other bits. Are you allowed contact with a woman while she is in her period of menstrual uncleanliness, Clive?
Yeah.
No, you're not, mate. That's Leviticus 15:19 to 24.
Again, James, you are taking things out of context.
No, I'm reading it out of the Bible.
You want to bring it back to men and men.
I'm bringing it back to Leviticus, which is what you just told me to do. So how can you tell whether or not a woman is in her period of menstrual uncleanliness?
Okay, all right then. So
and how close to it are you allowed to be?
Sure, okay. James, okay then. So
you're going to have to answer some of my questions at least at one point. So let's start with the slavery. Is it okay to sell my daughter into slavery?
No, it's not.
But it says in Leviticus that it is, Exodus that it is.
No, this was what mankind was doing because there was situation and circumstance.
But mankind was also lying with man, and you said that was bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why is that bad, but selling your daughter into slavery is not acceptable?
What we have to get back is to God's ideal.
No, mate, what you have to do is tell me how I can tell which bits of the Old Testament you think we should...
Can I give you an example?
No, you can answer my questions. No,
yes, I'm going to.
No, I said no.
With an example.
No, you can't give me an example. You need to tell me which bits of Leviticus you choose to obey and which bits you don't.
That was never God's plan.
Yeah, you're still just going to talk. You can't answer any of these questions.
Yeah, but I'm giving you a context here, so you can understand.
Right. I don't know if you're familiar with Sangeeta Maiska, who presents a programme on this radio station on Sunday.
Yes, I've heard.
So that is the Sabbath day. Sangeeta presents on the Sabbath day.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't present on the Sabbath. What day is that?
Saturday and Sunday she presents.
Okay, sure, yes. Saturday's the Sabbath, yes. Go ahead.
Exodus 35:2 clearly states that she should be put to death.
Why?
Because she's working on the Sabbath, mate.
Oh. No.
It's in Exodus. You just told me to read it.
No. No, I didn't tell you to read Exodus.
You told me to. You just said Genesis to Revelation. I suggested that the Old Testament had been superseded by the Sermon on the Mount. You said it hadn't. You told me to go back to Leviticus when you were trying to justify your homophobia. I've gone to Exodus. Do I have to kill Sangeeta Maiska for the sin of working on the Sabbath? Yes or no? It's a simple question.
No, you don't. So,
well, why not? Because the Bible tells me to.
Because this is what I'm trying to explain to you, James. There is a spiritual connotation and there is a physical one. Now, when Jesus came, he explained to us the spiritual context of things. And people will be spiritually dead. Listen to what I'm saying very carefully.
Oh, I am.
They'll be spiritually dead or spiritually kill themselves when they do certain things which is against God and which cuts them off from eternal life.
But do I have to kill Sangeeta Maiska?
No, I said if she is a believer and she's violating that which she believes, do you understand? Then that is between her and God.
You know that bit. That bit in Leviticus where it says that I can own slaves as long as they are purchased from neighbouring nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, would that include Wales?
Wales in England.
Well, no, Wales is it a neighbouring nation, or would I have to go to somewhere like France to buy slaves?
I don't know the context of that. I can't answer that directly.
You must know the context because you're handing down the law on homosexuality, so you must know the stuff about this. Is Leviticus 25:44. I may indeed possess slaves provided they are purchased from neighbouring nations. So would that include Wales, or would I have to go all the way to France?
If that's what the scripture says, then that's so.
Okay, so slavery is a good thing. Slavery's allowed then for you as a good Christian. Do you have any slaves?
No, I don't. Okay. I explained to you, James.
Do you have your hair... Can I ask you to describe your current hairstyle to me?
It's bald.
Right, so you've trimmed it around the temples?
Around the temples?
Yeah, you've trimmed your hair around the temples?
Yeah.
Well, that's expressly forbidden by Leviticus 19:27. I have to kill you now.
No, not at all.
Well, yes, this is all in your book, mate.
Again, as I said...
I haven't finished.
What
are you wearing?
You've got to get it in this context.
What are you wearing at the moment, Clive?
I'm wearing one robe with all one thread.
And what colour? No, you're not, though, are you? Because even you know how hypocritical you're sounding now, because you're not allowed to wear two different kinds of thread.
No.
You're blaspheming.
Not at all.
Well, mate, you just are. You just like the bit that hurts the gays, but you're happy to ignore the rest of it. Why do you think that is?
Can I say to you,
No,
James,
you can answer my question. Why do you pick the bit out of all of these books that discriminates against homosexuals, but you ignore all of the rest of it?
There's some laws that were done away with at the cross, but the moral law of liberty, the 10 Commandments...
I'm going to ask you for the final time, why do you choose to obey the bit that harms gay people while ignoring the rest of it?
It doesn't harm them. They're harming themselves because they're violating
there it is, but you're definitely not homophobic.
They're absolutely not.
Okay, mate. It's 12:45. Richard is in Maidenhead. Richard, what do you think?
Oh, hi, good morning, James. Nice to speak to you. I think I'm coming at this from a slightly different point of view. I was definitely a Remainer. I didn't really have any problem with the level of immigration then, as such. I'm probably Suella Braverman's worst nightmare. I think she's disgusting, and our attitude to asylum seekers should be very different to what it is at the moment. There should be a lot more empathy. However, I've got to agree with the last caller to a little extent. I don't believe the figures either. Oh. And it might be mistrust of this government and just in complete incompetence in everything they do.
Can't really do a phone-in about figures if we're not going to take the figures as the starting point.
Okay,
but tell me more about why you don't believe the figures.
Just from what you see in day-to-day life.
Yeah, go on.
Like, well, we're always told that we're only, this is the Tories after all, we've got to take it with a pinch of salt, that we're only going to be importing, to put it that way, or letting people immigrate in key professions that we are short of labour, or short of key skills. And while that is a short-term solution, so doctors, nurses, care workers, etc., etc., and certainly I don't want to discourage that overall, that doesn't seem to be explained. 600,000 net immigration. I don't believe for a second that they're all in these key sectors.
You said day-to-day life.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically every delivery driver is someone who can't speak English.
Right.
And I don't have a problem if they are.
Well, why bring it up?
No. What I'm saying is, like, day-to-day evidence shows that there is loads of people coming into the country that don't meet any of these requirements and are just coming in to meet really low-skilled and possibly black economy jobs.
Right.
So look at car washes, look at nail bars, look at slightly dodgily run corner shops, people putting their cousin on the Uber account.
You do sound exactly like someone who would have phoned me before the Brexit or shortly after the Brexit referendum telling me why they voted for Brexit. So you think that... No, I know you're not that. I know you're not that person. Yeah. I'm just telling because people listening would expect me to point out that's exactly what you sound like. So No.
I appreciate
your contention is that
things. Normally, I completely agree with you.
I haven't got an opinion yet. I don't know what my opinion is. I was just asking the question as to why people are less angry about immigration than they were in 2016, but you're actually more angry or more concerned.
I wouldn't say I'm not concerned. I'm concerned, not angry. Right. I'm concerned. I just don't think it's working, and I think long term.
But all the things you're pointing at are the things that Brexiters pointed at. Every single one.
Yes, to a certain extent.
No,
and I
completely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I think there was a lot of more overt racism and rhetoric around what the Brexiteers said.
I mean, people talking about other workers not being able to speak English and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Look,
because we hate that, don't we?
Oh, no, I don't hate that.
Because you just did it.
No, I didn't say I hated it, though. I'm saying what that is it is a sign of that the immigration laws aren't working.
Right.
If we're only letting in people... And as I said, I would encourage us to let in far more asylum seekers.
I think what you're doing and what I'm doing and what Andrew is doing and what possibly none of us realise we're doing is we don't know what the immigration debate is anymore.
Yes, well, exactly. You said, but you at the beginning of the conversation, you said, let's not start discussing the figures because we've got to have some kind of basis for discussion.
I said let's not start having a conversation about the figures that hinges upon the idea that we can't trust the figures. I said the only starting point we have today is the announcement of the latest net immigration figures. I mean, that is, I mean, I'm grateful to you for ringing in, but phone-ins about why you can't believe the facts that the phone-ins are based on are a little bit anti-vax, to be honest with you. So I sort of steer slightly away from that. But we don't know what the immigration debate is, you and me. You're saying things, despite caveating it very carefully, you're saying things that sound exactly like what racists sounded like in the run-up to the referendum. I fully appreciate you don't see yourself in that light at all. That's what I'm hearing. That's what a lot of people listening here. And complaints like Farage complained about people on trains not speaking English. You've got
it's not people on trains.
It's delivery drivers. It's completely different. But we don't know what the debate is today. You feel, looking around, that there are too many foreign people here who you don't feel are sufficiently skilled.
And I don't believe.
That is. Yeah. Okay. And I get that, but you're not again in the category. The category might not exist. Andrew was in it, but not necessarily for reasons that will be widely shared. The idea that life has got better, and that again, I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? If you can't trust the figures, you can't have this conversation. But we will continue to try.
The girls, the boys, and the dog.